Hello.
Hi,
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. Jason was supposed to join us. He's here, kind of.
Here but not here.
So I had a. I just happened to see a picture of Kafir uh, Bebus on my computer. I from like something I downloaded a while ago. I'm like, huh. I wonder what's going on with that kid. Um, Frankly, I'm guessing, God have mercy, he might not be alive. Um, but
Mm. Right, the
he,
thumbnail kid.
yeah. But I went and looked, and the latest news was uh, he just had his Hebrew birth date, 1 year old. Um, yeah, and Antonio wants to know my comments on Shia LaBeouf converting to Catholicism. That happened a while ago, didn't it?
I think it's been in process for a while, but it might have just like been
Baptized.
consummated recently. Yeah.
Mm. So I wish him the best, and frankly, I'm guessing it's better than the atheist lifestyle he lived before. Uh, yeah. Jason has a phone call. Can you believe it?
Regular
Jason is
Hezzy,
Jason is yeah, it's worse than Hezzy, right? You're
Mr.
not
Popular.
you're not in your office.
No, I'm in my kitchen.
You are in your kitchen.
Yeah, I don't want to wake. I don't want to wake the children.
Aha. You are in Michigan. It must be cold in Michigan. It's
Yes, I was also out in my garage, like rearranging things, and so I'm still thawing. Yes, it's cold
mm,
here. It's not brutal. It's cold.
it's cold in Los Angeles. It must have been down in the 60s today.
No, that is freezing in
In Los
Southern
Angeles?
California. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
Oof.
Uh, that's a nice kitchen, Antonio says.
Thank you, Antonio. It's
Uh,
one of the things we did to our house when we moved into it. Put a new kitchen in it.
nice.
Hmm.
So Max is moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah,
The
I
the
saw that.
The Los Angeles crew is growing.
I've never been there. That's actually one place where I feel like I would move there sight unseen.
What's up?
What's up, Jason?
Hey, hey guys. Sorry I'm late.
We will never forgive you.
I got a last minute call from a friend of mine, but I told him to join in, so he might hop on. I don't know though. We'll see.
Aha. You and your friends.
Friends.
All
Yeah.
right, so what
His
New
name.
Testament
I met
chapter
him
are we going to
through.
read today?
Well, first we have to hear all about Jason's travels in India. And then
What?
we have to talk about Jason being the spotlight of PVK's live stream yesterday.
What? I was the spotlight of his live stream?
You were the spotlight of his live stream yesterday.
How did that happen? What do you mean? I was in the
What?
comments, but
No, no, you got mentioned.
what? Oh man, I'm
Yeah,
famous now.
you
Where?
are famous now.
Maybe that means I can get those donations he was getting. I saw that in the comments. He was getting like he probably made a
Yeah,
grand.
Bruce.
That was
Bruce like
insane.
dropped $500 straight to Google, and it's like, come on, Bruce. Like, if you're gonna give the money to Google, at the very least, give it to Fountain of Comfort. Okay,
Yeah.
before we start, now that we have Jason back, prayers. Who's gonna say the prayer?
I can if you want me to. Nobody,
It's all you,
nobody
Jason.
jump all at once. All right. Heavenly Father, we come before you right now. I just thank you for this opportunity. We get to come together and focus on you. And I ask that you give us wisdom and open up our eyes to see things the way that you reveal them to us and the way that you want them to see us. And please direct our hearts and give us guidance in every step we take and draw us closer to you, closer to your love and to loving one another. And I just thank you for your judgments and your truth and your light and your glory. And I ask that you help us to give glory to you. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. Was that Protestant enough?
Protestant as always.
Okay.
Okay, so tell us all about India.
All about it. I don't know. It was good. It was fun. It's probably the best trip I've had. I feel like
First of all, you went to India because your sister has Project Yakar. People should go see my interview with your sister.
Yep. So yeah, I went there. We originally went in 2019, and I went with kind of her ministry. That's when she started it. That was the first place we went, and then since then, I've just been going back to see the
Project
kids.
Yakar is
my sister's ministry. YAQAR. It's a Hebrew word. It means precious, weighty, value, something like that. It's a ministry she started where she wanted to make connections across the entire world of helping with kids, basically orphans or just any kids in need. And so she wanted to kind of make it a hub, so where people could come to her ministry and say, "I'd like to go here or there," or they don't even have to want to go anywhere. They could just say, "Well, this is what I'd like to help in any way possible," or "This is my skill set. Is there any way I can help?" And she'd try to kind of be a hub and plug people in and stuff like that. So we're still trying to make connections, but she wanted to connect with a new country or new place every year, but that didn't. I think the only haven't done that is I think the year of COVID, but yeah. So I don't know. I went back for a month this time, and then the last week was when the Yakar project showed up. I kind of just went personally just to spend time with the kids there that are, now they're just my friends.
So where's there, and who are the kids? And
there is Guwahati, Assam in India. It's like kind of northeast India.
My tea. You talk about this while I go get my tea.
All right.
I will be back.
All right. I'll do it. So the place I go to in India is Guwahati, Assam. Well, it's right on the border of Guwahati and Meghalaya. And so I go there. I try to go every year. And it takes a long, long time to get there. Probably 3 days travel. Let's see. And there's a nearby village. And so the nearby village there, some of the kids will come down and stay at, it's basically kind of a hostel. It's like a little compound where some of the kids will come and stay, and they'll they can do schooling and learn about. She teaches them the Bible and things like that. And so I don't know. It's weird too because it's kind of a Christian area. I didn't know that at first, but there's like different churches all around the area and different denominations of different churches, which is cool. It's a lot of fun. And I don't know, the whole lifestyle is just different there. It's just I enjoy it almost. When I go there, it's just I don't know. It just feels like I'm living.
Well, I mean, the kids are coming to the hostel, like their parents come with them, or what's going on?
No. So, my mom was asking me about this recently too. I don't know all of their backstories. Some of them don't have parents. Some of them have parents, and they're just really, their parents aren't, doing well, or some of them are alcoholics or things like that. Some of them only have one parent, and that parent is really, really struggling with money to take care of like 3 children or something. So sometimes just 1 or 2 of the kids will come and stay. And so
how old are these kids?
They vary. So the youngest one, when I was there, he was 7, and the oldest one I think was like he's in his 20s, but he's kind of like worker now. He's one of the teachers. So it's like 7 all the way up to he's like I think 22. And then, but even the ones like I think there's a girl there. I think she's 19, and I think she basically is she'll help with teaching and things like that. But they're still going to school too. Like I know she was doing exams while I was there. So, and they kind of are homeschooled for the most part. They'll do homeschooled, but then they also will take exams at nearby schools. I don't know how their schooling system works. It was hard for me to understand, but it seemed like it was a lot more involved than ours and a lot more difficult. But I don't know. But yeah, so they come from like there's a nearby village that I have walked through it before, but it's probably hard to walk through it for some people. And so a lot of the kids will come from there, and sometimes they'll go back and forth. Like they'll come and stay at the hostel for a year or so, then go back up and live with their parents, and then come back down if they need to. And then some of the other kids come from I don't know how far it is because the traveling's just weird. Because one of them, my friend Alpe, he was going home and it took him like 3 days travel, but he was going by like train. So I think it was maybe a 2-hour flight if he would have had money for a plane ticket, but he didn't. So he had to go by train and like car after that. And so it took him like almost 3 days to get home.
So is this rural or urban, or what kind of environment is it? Like, what kind of like are people subsistence farming? Like, what's the economy like?
It's kind of weird. It's kind of I don't know the right way to describe it. It's extremely so the city Guwahati is like it's like a city. And it's a little traffic, a lot of cars and everything. And then the specific area I went to is like on the edges of the city, and it's I guess if you went up to the village, you would say it's just it's like the jungle basically. You're just kind of up in the jungle, and they'll grow stuff there. They'll have some gardens. They have stuff growing wild too, like tropical fruits and things like that. But then in the when you go down the village and like on the outskirts of the city, kind of where I am, you kind of walk out and it's like dirt roads, and people have marketplaces and like kind of just shops on the side of the street, and yeah. So let's see, where is Meghalaya? At bottom right, a little over to the right, some more. Assam, Meghalaya, up left. I'm looking at your mouse area. Yeah, so it's kind of around there because it's on the border of like Assam and Meghalaya is where. I'm trying to think. I think it's somewhere around there. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, so it's
border.
it's kind of. Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know the right way to describe it. I wouldn't really call it urban, but I wouldn't really call it rural either. And there's just I don't know. It's fun. I really enjoy it. And so it's kind of like it's kind of like if you went to a farmer's market every day. You can walk out and there's little shops and you can get you can buy like Cokes and stuff at the shops, and they have like some of them they have like small little grocery stores sort of things, but then like later in the day, especially in the evening, a lot of times they'll like more shops will open up where people will come with their basically farm goods or whatever, and so they'll be sitting out there selling their vegetables or stuff like that. So
did you go to Lonely Rock?
No, wait, what is that? Is that the rock quarry? I might have actually gone.
It's a hiking area.
I don't think I went there. I did go to a rock quarry though, where people were like, they were literally like up on the cliff, just tied to a rope.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Some of them were tied to ropes, but some of them were not. And
interesting.
Yeah, I might have actually walked through there. I don't know because we walked through a rock quarry while I was there. That's interesting, huh? Maybe that was the same road I was on.
Johnny Pig Farm.
Yeah, I might have been there. Johnny Pig Farm. I don't know. Yeah, it's a fun area though. Like when I first went to India, the first time we went to South India, and it's totally different. Like when in this area, the only way to describe it, it's just kind of like the Jungle Book. Like when you get back in the jungle, it's just like got the jungle and the ponds and I guess the weird animals. I haven't seen anything too crazy though. I'd
Krishna
like to see a tiger or
Kanta
something.
Pandiki State Open University.
I don't think I've been there.
There's a science museum. You didn't go to the science museum?
I don't think I went there. No. I think that's that main highway though. I think so. If you go left, let's see. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship.
There's so much stuff on so many buildings. It's hard to tell like where I was exactly. The hotel I was at was called Nirvana Guest House in Guwahati. So
Nirvana Guest House.
I love Nirvana.
Is
in
this
Guwahati.
it? Is that what it looked like?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's where I stayed. Yeah, I mean, I stayed at their compound a little bit but I had to basically I was staying at the hotel mostly. Well, some because I was trying to work there, and then some because we just need to do that for legal reasons. Because I think last time, especially when we went there as a Yakar project, the police showed up afterwards and were like, I think they were trying to kind of somewhat threaten shutting down our hostel because they were accusing us of evangelizing and things like that. Which is, I guess, illegal in India. I think even if you're a citizen, it's illegal. Hey, that's
your That's on Google.
Hey, that was 2019.
There you
the
are.
First time we went. What the heck?
Busted.
That's crazy. Yeah, and that's my friend Michael and Natalie, my sister, and David. That was the first time we went. So I stayed there last time too, and he got a video review of us. So maybe our video.
So you
review
weren't
will be
just
on here too now.
lying to me about going to India.
No, see, there I am.
There's photographic evidence.
So many years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was up there. That's kind of fun. Yeah, and this last time when we left, he took a video on his phone of us giving a review. So that'll pop up sometime soon.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, it was fun though. I mean, I can send you like pictures and video if you want. I got so many
We're
photos
looking
now.
at it right now.
Well, you can upload.
Well, I mean,
it
not
to
of the hotel, of the actual, like the kids and stuff. The hotel is kind of interesting though. It's neat, I guess.
That's a nice hostel.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
this is where he stayed. It's not
That's
where
where they stay. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't.
I got it. Makes sense.
I have
now.
stayed. Yeah, I couldn't stay at the hostel. Well, I mean, technically I could because they want me to stay there. It's just we're a little kind of a little bit concerned with the government.
It must have been within walking distance of the hostel you went to visit.
Yeah.
Right?
So where are we? Where are we at here? So let's see.
There's Nirvana Guest House. There's the Samanta Path.
All right, so go down south a little bit. Let's see if we can find that main highway. What the heck? I have no idea. Well, I know. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out where this is laid out. Like the way
Hindustan
this is laid out.
Auto Zone. You must have
Heck, I don't know, man. Oh wait, yeah, keep going. Keep going.
There's the main.
That's
road.
the main highway, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
So it was on the other side of the highway?
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember crossing that highway. You had to walk underneath it because they're doing a bunch of
Did you walk
construction.
past the shopping mall? That looks like a pretty
Yeah,
big
I think
shopping
so. Yeah, it was. It's not that popping. And so after you cross that highway, go back up a little bit. Then that first, let's see, if you're going down that first right, so that, well, I mean, Yeah, that road. I think I walked all the way to the place. Up one more. That to you on that road. It's the highway.
This way?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard because I can't do it myself. Yeah, that road. Yeah, that road you were just like pointing. So then I think you take that one.
Oh, this way.
Uh,
Oh, okay, yeah.
This little one, yeah, and follow that down. And keep going. There should be some temple with a bunch of snakes on it somewhere. I don't know where that is, or if it'll be even marked. So then go down. Yeah, get down some. I'm trying to figure out. Keep going down and down. Oh wait, you know what? You could maybe put in that might be easier. You could put in Congo Baptist Church. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna put it in the private chat.
How do you spell Congo
Yeah,
Baptist Church?
okay. I'm guessing, but I think that's might be it. Let me see.
That's right
Well,
down the street from the temple with snakes.
Let's see if there's a Baptist church here.
Because it's very near that.
Pongmo Baptist Church. Is that the Baptist church we're talking about?
Tongkul.
Yeah, I put it in the private chat. So Tongol Baptist Church. I think it's that second one down. So you're on.
Yeah, it's right
Tongol?
there. Yeah.
So the second one down should be.
Oh, Tongkul Baptist Church.
Yeah, Tongkol.
Oh,
Tongol.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
church
a whole
right
different
by.
Baptist church. It's a whole block away from Pongmo Baptist.
Yeah. So that's the one. That's the church that's like I went to that church 3 times while I was there because it's like right next to the place. Yeah.
In Indian Institute of Theological Studies.
Yeah, I don't think I went there. But yeah, I went to that Baptist church, so it's like it's right around there.
Right around there.
So
Like-
to the left, go left a little bit. I think it's that house. Basically, I don't know if I should be saying all this on the internet. It might be bad. Well, they won't know. They weren't tracking me. So yeah, right that. See how the road goes up and curves like this
Mhm.
this corner to the left there? Yeah, right there. I think that's the compound right there where your mouse is.
Okay, so it's right there. Okay, we won't.
That should be it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Dox him.
Completely doxed them. Poor
Yeah.
guys. So Assam and Meghalaya are those like cities or?
They're states. So Assam is
Oh.
the state, and then Meghalaya is like a different state, and they're right on the border of both states. But I mean, it doesn't matter. Like they don't like it's a hostel. I mean, they don't do anything illegal. It's just that they were thinking the car project was doing illegal stuff, which we weren't. But so that's why when I went there last time too, I stayed at the hotel because they could get in trouble if we stayed there. They'd be like, "Oh, you're basically housing missionaries or housing evangelists," and that's illegal.
Yeah,
so.
India is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, if not the most corrupt country in the world. I was actually pursuing many years ago. I was pursuing a business opportunity there, and basically there was no way to ship things from city to city without paying exorbitant taxes all along the way to everyone. So it's like pretty impossible to do anything. Like the economy in India suffers really horribly from that child molester Gandhi's bad ideas.
Oh, here it comes.
I've heard
Greatest
these
hits,
rumors.
B-sides.
I mean,
He's on all their
before
money.
I say Gandhi, I have to like preface it with like a title, right? So that child molester.
I heard that he would sleep with children in order to resist the child
Yes.
molestation.
So in his collected letters, there's this really, how do I call it? Disgusting letter where he talks about how he made his 15-year-old niece sleep naked with him while he had an erection to test himself.
Wow.
That's
How do you
some Michael
do?
Jackson shit right there.
Did he pass? the test. I feel like you kind of fail at that point, but
You fail
mean-
when you make a 15-year-old child
yeah.
sleep naked next to you, you 70-year-old dirty old man.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's I don't know what the test is there, but it doesn't seem like
I don't care
Good
about
one.
him testing himself, just as if the kid didn't have to be involved.
yeah, it's true. I agree. He is on all their money. Gandhi is on
Yeah, there's a reason
only
why
one.
nobody reads his collected letters in India. Because when you read his letters, you see what a disgusting and stupid person he was. And he's too important for people to actually know who he was in India. So he's become a mythological figure. But we still have his collected letters, and they're still there, and they're disgusting.
the Indian
Hey,
Post.
Elijah's here. Man, really sad about the Indian Post. What's the Indian Post? If only there were a group
mailing.
of people who could rule the country, who were known for sending letters around the world efficiently. Yeah, the Persians. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I love India though. It's a wonderful country, but it's not for everybody. That's for sure. It's a lot. That's all I know how to describe it to people. Is it's a lot.
It's not
It-
for everybody.
Yeah,
It's-
it's
yeah.
colorful in all the ways. So many smells, so many noises.
Well, you know
Colors.
why. Now we're actually
Is
going to
it-
do some Bible study. Do you know why?
Okay. Because of Abraham's sons were sent.
Yes.
eastward. Really? I remember. I've heard you mention this before.
Yes.
I thought they went to China.
They went to India,
China.
and then Thomas went there and got flayed alive or something like that. It's a rumor. I think.
Where's the thing about him sending his sons, Abraham?
Oh, I got a new Bible for Christmas, so I won't know exactly because it's all laid out different. But let's see. It's after
Genesis
after she
25.
dies, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think Genesis 25 is.
I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, 25 verse 5, verse 6.
But to
25
Abraham's sons by concubines, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living, and he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. And the Zohar, the Holy Zohar, says he gave the gifts he gave them were the names of impurity.
The names of impurity. What does that even mean? Gandhi?
So, by having names, it's possible to affect magic in the world, especially names of impurity. And he gave them the capacity to do all kinds of magic.
Eastward in India.
India and
They do have a lot
China.
of names.
Yes, and that's why many rabbis say that that's why to this day India and China and the East are still so filled with idolatry, despite the fact that the Talmud says the rabbis killed the evil inclination for idolatry and murder in the world, and blinded the evil inclination for sexual immorality.
The rabbis did. but it's not blinded eastward.
Well, no,
Is
no,
that
no.
right?
So,
That the implication?
okay, they killed. So the three cardinal sins in Judaism are
Yeah.
idolatry, murder, and sexual immorality. And so there's this story in the Talmud about how after the destruction of the Second Temple, the rabbis got together and they killed the evil inclinations for the three cardinal sins, but then they saw that the chickens were not laying eggs anymore, and so they decided to blind the evil inclination for sexual immorality instead.
Oh, the chickens were not laying eggs anymore.
Basically, that the world would not withstand without there being a inclination towards sexual immorality,
Oh,
lust.
that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that story.
So, yeah, but we
So
see,
I don't know much about
yeah.
the Chinese religions. I'm not very familiar with those. I'm really not that familiar with Hindu religions either. I know probably more than some people do, but
Well,
definitely
I
not an
mean,
expert.
Hinduism isn't an actual thing. It's a thing we kind of like the West came up with. Like
Yeah,
there's many different religions that like just get called Hinduism. And
yeah. There's all different strands of it. Yeah,
yeah, and I mean, thank God for the British Raj. They got rid of some of the worst religions in India, like the Thugis.
I haven't heard of those. The
You,
Thugis?
yes, have you heard of the word thug?
Yeah, that's what that
That
comes from.
comes from the Thugis.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's still some. I can't remember. There's still some radical sects in. Well, I heard they're pretty radical around Varanasi. I think they were orange or something. I've never heard of these Thugis. Oh,
Are
so what is their?
actions and crimes carried out by thugs historically organized gangs of professional robbers and murderers in India. The English word thug traces its roots to the Hindi thug, which means swindler or deceiver. Related words are the verb thugna, to deceive, from the Sanskrit sthaga, cunning, sly, fraudulent, and sagati, he conceals. The term describing the murder and robbery of travelers was popular in the northern parts of the Indian subcontinent, especially northern and eastern regions of historical India. Contemporary scholarship is increasingly skeptical of the Thugi concept and has questioned the existence of such a phenomenon, which has led many historians to describe Thugi as the invention of the British colonial regime. I'm not sure I believe that.
So they got rid of thugs, but that's not like a religion or anything. That's just like some sort of
Well,
cult, right?
that's what. So the thugs comprised some who had inherited Thugi as a family vocation, and
Oh.
others who were forced to turn to it out of necessity. The leadership of many of the groups tended to be hereditary, with family members sometimes serving together in the same band. Such thugs were known as asil. Many thugs insisted, however, the novices were not taught Thugi by their family, but by others who were often more experienced thugs, sometimes also called a guru. While they usually kept their acts a secret, female thugs also existed and were called baroni in Ramasi, while an important male thug was called a baru.
Ooh,
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
I
Like Peaky
was,
Blinders.
yeah, I mean, there's stories about like there being all kinds of
Yeah, India hasn't been
cults.
independent that long. I didn't know that till this trip,
Yep.
but they just got their independence. What, like I think it was like 1940 something, maybe.
In 1947 or 48, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Hello, Rabbi.
Hi, Rabbi.
And Elijah is right. Hindu nationalists have crazy revisionist history. Well, we were talking about Abraham sending the names to the east. One of the problems with India is that castes are basically separated by IQ. Very difficult for the lower castes to ever form a government for themselves. Yeah, I mean, when you get endogenous castes and stuff, that'll do it. Endogamous, not endogenous. Endogamous.
Did
Okay.
you know there is a Holy Trinity in Hinduism?
Many Hindus would disagree with that.
Yeah, I probably would.
There are people who say that there. So we have gotten a lot of Mick Hinduism in the United States, and so there's been a lot of attempts at turning Hinduism into an analog to Christianity.
Did you call it Mick Hinduism?
Mech, like as in like McDonald's.
Like so Irish or Scottish? Mix.
No, like a franchise of Hinduism for American tastes. You could call it
okay.
Panda Express Hinduism. Yeah.
Ganesh Express.
I mean, like the food at Panda Express is not how Chinese people make their food.
How do Chinese people make their food?
It tends to have a lot less sugar than American Chinese food. That's for sure.
That was true of Italian food too.
Well, I think it's basically true of all food. Americans,
we like sugar here.
Yeah, food.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say the food over there is it's definitely better that I had in India. It just sits in your system different.
Better than.
I don't like not even necessarily. I mean, I think it tastes better, but just like even if I mostly ate rice and curry every day. I'd have eggs sometimes. I mean, I've had chicken and stuff too. They have like meat. Even had beef while I was there. Don't tell anybody. I know, right? God. I didn't kill anything. I just had it. But just like the way it just, I don't know, the way it sits in my system, like just it just feels like you feel better. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just less preservatives or something that are involved in the food. I don't really know what it is, but I just and that's where it's been. Let's see. I mean, I've traveled around a few places now. I feel like it was kind of similar in Honduras as well. That's probably, but I mean, specifically in India though. Although I mean, I didn't eat a whole lot of street food. Like I was basically eating home cooked meals almost every day, and so that really helps a lot too. But it was mostly just rice and the curry, whatever you put on the rice, or different chutneys or things like that. But like I said, even when I try to make that stuff at home, it just it feels different. I don't feel as like I get it like I don't know, you just feel like cleaner and you have more energy, if that makes sense. But maybe that could just be me though. Just weird. I don't think though. So because my sister said the same thing when she went though. She said that she would eat like twice as much food in India and feel better. Like it just feels like it's, I don't know. It's not McDonald's, I guess.
I found the place where PVK talks about Jason.
About me. What did he say?
Jason.
My ears are burning.
Your ears are burning. Where is it? There it is. Okay.
But I've only spoken to him like once or twice, maybe. Well,
Oh,
maybe a little bit more, but
he didn't remember you at all. But
he didn't remember me at all.
See,
It's all in one church, baby. All in one church.
Almond says, read the Bible harder.
Amen.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
Well, I would love to have a conversation with Jason because he is a hardcore biblicist. Like hardcore. He thinks most people that are biblicists aren't biblicists enough, and they pick and choose. I would love for him to talk to you too, Ruth. Jason's like a Bible. That's all he does is read the Bible.
What else is what more profitable? That's great.
So
Is that the
and if you
Bruce
guys
that
want-
gave all the money?
If you want to understand Christian
There's a lady
universalism,
present.
the kind I would, the kind that I would advocate, go to Sovereign Love, Wayne Fair. He's a corner guy.
I
Watch
noticed
his
that you
videos.
mentioned the
You don't want
Bible
to caricature it.
as the place to find Christian universalism. I noticed that, that wasn't the research.
Not,
you did.
I'm not a rationalist foundation. I don't approach the
Apparently, your internet's not rationalist.
See?
It's dropping.
Anselman with the win.
Cassidy.
All right.
Paul says I would love to talk to
Ladies first,
Jason.
That was solid.
Oh, I just saw a lot of
Sweet.
friendly faces. Like
I'd love to talk to him too.
So there you go. You're gonna have to go talk to
All right.
Paul Vanderklay.
Yeah, I've talked to him on, I think, one of Luke's streams, or maybe twice, but not. Usually there's a lot of other people on, so I've never really spoken to him much one-on-one.
Mm.
But
What's a hardcore
Also-
biblicist?
Luke will often say that he calls me a Bible nerd, and I'll basically, because when people talk about sola scriptura or things like that, I'm like, I feel like nobody's really that way, because if you actually believe, I've said this many times, like if Christians actually believed what they'd say, that every single letter, like word in the Bible is like God breathed and it's from God, I'm like, then you'd have to have one verse, you'd have to have all the other verses in the Bible pressing upon one verse. You can't just take one and be like, do some sort of gymnastics and do all these weird interpretations. And then it breaks up your categories. You can't just put things in all these categories or come up with these like really, really hard to find doctrines or all this weird. I mean, I don't know. That's what I mean. I'm just like, if you just keep reading the Bible and keep reading it harder and harder, then it will eventually break up all your. To me, I think it'll break up all your doctrines, and then you'll probably end up where I am, and then people will be like, "Are you even a Christian?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just like the Bible." So.
Why do you think I have you as the host of my Bible study?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, because people will take. It's really hard to. You can't just pin something down or put something in all these neat little boxes like people want to. Like even with, like there's certain things like that conversation you were in Cal recently, Jake, where you would like quote a verse like, where Jesus says salvation is of the Jews. So I'm like, yeah.
It's even better than that. It's even better than that. Jesus says, you know not who you worship, but we do know who we worship, for salvation is of the Jews.
Yeah.
He's talking
So
to the Samaritan woman. So like he's basically telling the Gentiles, like, get with it.
Salvation is yeah. So that's what I mean. Is like I think there's certain verses in there where they're just kind of weirdly sort of glossed over or dismissed, and if you actually took them seriously, like they were God breathed, divine revelation, you would have to, I don't know, you'd have to hold to them, but then you have all, like I said, you have all the other verses pressing against it, and so you just don't really get to, I don't know, that's what I mean. I don't think you can come up with these really neat boxes that sometimes different faiths or Christianity or different denominations like to put things in. I don't think the Bible allows you to do that.
I have to say, I don't think the Bible allows you to do that and stay Christian.
Allows you to do that and stay Christian? You say,
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
I mean, if you actually take the Bible seriously, you will end up stopping being a Christian. You may end up being a Jew. but you may end up being an atheist. But I don't think you can take the Bible seriously and stay a Christian very long.
Well,
Certainly not a
see-
normal Christian.
yeah, not a normal Christian. That's why I guess that's what I mean. You'd end up where I am, and it's like I don't know, because I'd still believe in Jesus. I would still follow Jesus. I still think he's the Son of God. But then at the same time, like you've said before, Jacob, like he's the Son of God, but then it also says Adam is the Son of God, and so like if you actually take both of those,
It
to
also
be
says
words
Satan
from God,
is the son of God.
does it? I don't know where
Yeah.
it says it. Really?
Job.
Okay. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it includes that. It's including him
It says
as one of the sons of
it-
God.
It,
And
it
Satan
says
also came
the
among
sons
them.
of like
Yeah.
here. Let's pull up Job.
There was a day when the sons of God came before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. So it's kind
Yeah.
of, I guess, I never viewed it that way. But that's what I
the
mean.
word-
It's
What's the word in Hebrew though?
Sons of God, B'nai Elohim.
yeah.
Okay.
And you brought up that verse to Cal in John where it says, where Jesus even says, "Are you not?" What is it, John 10 or something? He said, "Did he not call them gods?"
Yeah, Vani
To whom the word
Amarti
of God
Elohim
came.
etem, B'nai Elyon
Yeah.
Totam. Yeah. Where am I? Oh, there we are. Here, 1:6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and the adversary came also among them.
Yeah. So he's being included,
He's among
not kind
them.
of like a separate. Yeah. I guess it makes sense. For some reason I never thought of it more that like I more thought of it along the lines of like, oh, he's not part of them, but he's coming like beside them. But I guess if you read it among them, he's you could. I just never thought of it that way before. I mean, I guess technically, right? If God created everything, he'd have to be.
I mean, what do you mean by a son of God? If you mean like something like God, well, like I'm sorry, but God doesn't die. Like God doesn't go to the bathroom. Like that, not things,
Yeah. Well, how do you? I think that was something maybe Kyle was trying to get at too. How do you guys interpret all of that? Like with the. Okay, so there's a verse I know this is Hebrew Bible study, so we don't have to go into this, but there's a verse I'd actually be curious about how Jewish people would read it. I think it's in the book of John, and Jesus says something. He basically says something about being the Son of God, and then they say that that's him making himself equal to God or something like that. And I've never really understood why, if that was just like a common thought back then. If you say you're someone's son, that's
No.
making yourself equal to them.
Yeah, frankly, I mean,
Himself equal to God. Let me see if I can find it. It's John 5, verse 18. Therefore, Jews sought more to kill him because he not only had broken the Sabbath, but said also that God was his father, making himself equal to God. I never
like
I
what?
is that weird to you? Because that's, I mean, I didn't know if that's just like the way people
Five
thought or
what?
something. Like 5:18.
5.
Jews. For fear of the Jews.
So, because Jesus was doing these things on the Sabbath, the Jewish leaders began to persecute him. This is the NIV, so instead of the Jews, they say the Jewish leaders. In his defense,
okay.
Jesus said to them, "My Father is always at his work to this very day, and I too am working." For this reason, they tried all the more to kill him. Not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. Like, this must be the dumbest thing anybody ever said.
Well, I was well. Okay, is that how most like Jewish people would read that though? They'd read it as just being dumb that someone put that in there. Because I didn't know if there was that's actually how
We
maybe
refer
people
to
thought
God
back
as
then.
our Father all the time.
Yeah, and there's
Like
no.
it's a normal part of, like, it's in the Bible in many places.
Yeah.
Like, are we not the sons of one Father? Are we not the sons of one Father? Malachi 2:10. Malachi 2:10. What happened to my Sepharia? I don't know what happened to my Sepharia, but I am going to pull up Sepharia.
There's an Isaiah too, right? It says that God is our Father. We're all the work of His hands.
Malachi
Well, is there?
2:10. Have we not all one Father? Has not one God created us? Why do we deal treacherously, every man against his brother, to profane the covenant of our fathers? Like, what? Did they try to kill Malachi too?
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, supposedly, right? I mean, I don't know if they.
oh, that's another stupid thing. Like, Jesus and the Quran picked this up. Like, you killed all the prophets. Like, out of all the prophets, only a few of them were killed.
Yeah, only the ones that sucked, right? I'm just kidding.
The ones that sucked.
I like my prophets not killed.
Oh man. Well, yeah, that's why I was curious because it would just seem like I mean, that always kind of struck me as a strange leap to make logically, that if you're the son, like why that would make you equal to the father, other than maybe it's the idea that you would inherit everything from your father, so eventually you would become, like, I mean, not
I'm
even
sorry,
thinking
but
in terms of God, just in terms of like how it naturally works with people.
the Jews in the Gospels are comically idiotic, and Father Stephen, that's his explanation. He's like, yeah, it's showing them being comically idiotic, so that any Jew would be like, yeah, these people are being idiotic. And it's like, yep.
Oh, gotcha. Well, glad we cleared that up. I don't even remember how we got on all that. I can't remember. Oh, reading the Bible harder.
Because
That's
I asked
what
about
I mean.
you being, yeah, you're a biblicist.
That's right. Yeah,
Hardcore,
yeah.
a hardcore.
Yeah, I
biblicist.
mean that's what, and like I was saying too. I mean, I think the quote unquote universalist that most people think about is just kind of it's almost weirdly like nothing matters. It's kind of how it gets portrayed. Like you can kind of do whatever, and nothing matters because everybody gets saved in the end. But I mean, I would call myself universalist too, probably the same way Luke was, where I think and the only reason I ended up, like, I wasn't brought up that way. I was brought up completely different. Like, none of my family is that way at all. The only reason I became that way is just through reading the scriptures over and over and over. And honestly, Ezekiel 16 was a huge shift for me. Compared that, like, I think I usually say that kind of alongside with maybe Romans 11 or something like that. But just, I mean, the implications of, like, if you actually take even just the New Testament, you take some of those as the words of God, and then Jesus being God, and so he's speaking these things to you, and then it's like, take his words seriously. And then I don't know what you do as a Christian, because then you get to the book of Revelation and it's like Jesus says you have to love your enemies, and greater love has no one than to lay down his life for his friend. And then you have the whole thing with the second death and the lake of fire, and I'm like, do you just stop loving your enemies then, or are you supposed to love the lake of fire for him? I'm like, how far does your Christianity go? Like, it really, I don't know. That's what I mean. I think you get to a point where it's kind of,
Yeah, Christianity just falls apart.
I don't think it falls apart. It just really, I do think it pushes, or it should push you to your limit. And to me, I think it does in the aspect of, like I've said before, forgiveness and things like that. I think it really, I still find it the most compelling story, but like I said, I don't think it's normal quote unquote Christianity, and I think a lot of the stuff within as traditionally believed by Christianity is I could probably affirm, but I know I wouldn't affirm it in the same way, and so. But that's literally, I mean, like that's what I mean is just from reading the scriptures over and over that caused me to break up, I guess, my categories and things like that. Because okay, so for an example is the type of church I was brought up in, whereas Word of Faith, which you have the health, wealth, and prosperity gospel stuff, kind of branched off that. So even in the churches I was brought up in, they would say God always heals; He never ever makes you sick. God will never ever make you sick. He'll never hurt you like a father.
What do they do with the verse where it says, "I will not make you, I will not place sickness upon you like I did in Egypt"?
Yeah, exactly. They would just they'd either ignore it or they say that's Old Testament and that was the law, and so we don't like that. Really, my encounters with a lot of Christians, they'll say the Old Testament is the same as the law, so they basically will just throw it out. And then it leads all the way up to like that Mike Winger video you tried to bring up one time where it's like, I'm like, shut this guy off. Like that's what I mean. They'll say the Bible is God breathed. Every word in the Bible is absolute truth. But then when they get to things like that, it's like, well, in our church, we say that God only heals. So that verse, we'll just say that's the Old Testament and we can throw it out or something like that. Or it changed after Jesus came or something like that. And I'm like, this makes no sense. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, that's what I mean. You have to, if you just read the Bible harder, you have to take all the verses and then you can't do things like that. It doesn't allow you to do things like that. Hey, it's Andrew Beaver. That was the
Hello,
friend
Andrew
that called
Beaver.
me. Hey,
Hello.
what's up?
I hear
How's it
you're a
going?
friend of Jason Schweitzer.
Yeah, well, we've talked twice, but we are still wonderful friends.
Yeah.
Well, first let me issue this correction. Elijah says maybe that verse in Malachi is talking about Jacob being the one father of all of them, and the Ibn Ezra and Radak apparently agree with him, but I still think Jews have been calling God our Father for a long time. So, Andrew, who are you? What are you doing on my channel?
Hey, man. Who am I? Man, such a big question so soon. I'm a 26-year-old man who has 2 young children who's trying to
I approve.
figure out what this is all about, and that's who I am. I'm not assume I know more than I do in the process.
I like this guy.
And yeah, I am also a man whose wife is currently not home and is trying to use this rare occurrence to clean the pantry. So there's that as well.
Cleaning the pantry is
Yeah, well, let me see. I wish I
idea.
could turn. How do you turn this thing around? Okay. Yeah, well, you know, if you could see it, you would see it. Oh, yeah, you can do this. You know, you could do. They got all the spices are going there. They're coming out of here, going there, and then everything's gonna get reorganized and put back in.
Dude, you are such a better man than I am.
Well,
26,
this isn't all
You have
the
a
time.
wife, at least 2 kids, and you clean the pantry. Like 3 things I have never done.
Well, hold on. Well, the pantry's been like this a long time, so don't give me too much credit.
I'm 46 and I've never cleaned my pantry.
What's in your pantry,
Wow.
Jacob?
A bunch of crap.
You know what? Maybe I'll post this phone up and I'll, as I sift through this, just figure out what's expired, and then we can. I won't be doing too. You won't hear a bunch of glass rolling around in the meantime.
And Max says he can confirm that my pantry has a bunch of crap in it. It does. My apartment is a mess, and the longer I live here, the more of a mess it becomes. So you have kids, and so I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions.
Okay, yeah,
Are-
ask as many as you want. Where are we at? There we are.
Do you belong to a church?
Yes.
Which church?
Oh, sorry. Maybe I misunderstood the question. Do you mean like a denomination or a particular belief system?
Whatever you mean.
Well,
You do you.
okay. So, yeah. I mean, I guess I'd say I'm a Christian.
Okay, what kind of Christian?
Did
you baptize your babies?
Did I what? Did I baptize my babies? No.
Okay, so
No.
so you're either an Anabaptist or a Baptist. Okay.
Sure. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny.
Which translation of the Bible do you use?
Usually the NASB.
NASB. Okay. Why?
Not a whole lot of thought goes into it. But I will say two things. One is that they attempted to make it just a pretty word for word translation. And well, if you put it on a scale, which you can put it on a scale. You have in the scale being, let's say, one side of the scale is trying to I don't know what they call it, but basically meaning. They're trying to make the text more reader friendly and make the language all modern, and but they're also they're not attempting to translate it just word for word, and the most word for word translation, as far as I know, and again, I don't want to say I don't care, but there hasn't been a whole lot of thought that went into it, is the NASB. And the other thing is just, it so happened to be the Strong's Concordance that I knew of, and I have an app and I can click on a word and figure out where that word is. And that translation, I can look at the Hebrew or the Greek word, and I can see anywhere that word was used and it's where that word was used by that author and whatever. I can make the search as specific as I want. I can see combination of words. I'm sure you're familiar with that type of stuff. Nothing. There's no Hebrew. I don't really know Hebrew. I can't say that I know any. I mean, I know like a word here and there that I've heard often, but.
Well, we could fix that. You're a pretty young man.
That's true. I could certainly learn Hebrew if I had the time. If I'm alive long enough to learn the language.
It's actually a very easy language, and this channel started out with me teaching biblical Hebrew.
I see.
Yeah. But I highly recommend you teach your kids Hebrew.
Ooh. They are still very young, but that would probably work. Well, I guess we could learn at the same time. But
there is a great YouTube channel called Aleph with Beth, and I think they're Baptists too. Yeah, okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, and they it is the best thing for teaching children Hebrew.
Well, what is it called?
Aleph with Beth.
Aleph. Can you spell that first word?
EPH.
Okay, with Beth. Got it.
Yes.
Well, I will look into it, sir.
Yay! That's my equivalent of baptizing you.
Okay.
He's trying to deprogram your kids.
Hey, I don't see any harm that can come out of teaching them Hebrew, other than the potential time that they could have spent doing other things.
So you believe.
Falling into his trap.
Definitely fell into my trap.
No, I agree with Andrew. I don't think there's any harm that would come from learning Hebrew. Hey, did you know, I just heard this recently, there's a Gen Z translation of the Bible.
Really?
Have you heard of this? Yeah, apparently, I think, I was trying to look it up. I think it's you can order it on Amazon. I think ChatGPT made it. Unofficial ChatGPT translation for Gen Z.
Well, so did I tell you about the TLC Bible?
No, I heard a little bit about it. But.
So Emma's supposed to make this little corner Bible, but it's also going to be the Lolcats Bible. And right now we're thinking of passing the Douay-Rheims through ChatGPT to as a first thing. So she's the official editor. I think that's why she's been avoiding me, is because I kind of signed her up to do that.
Hey, can I ask you a counter question?
Yes, please.
Why are those your questions?
Oh, well, I mean,
I don't even have an intention behind that question. I'm actually just curious.
No, well, when somebody joins the Bible study, basically, I try to like get their story on what they're doing here and what church you go to. Like when I ask what church you go
feel like
to,
that cuts to it quickest.
Yeah, I mean, I believe theology is what orients you in your life. So,
We met through Luke Thompson, right? He's the one that.
That's correct. So how did for also the record, let's say this. I will say a little bit more. I haven't been on social media in 5+ years. The only thing I have is YouTube. I mostly only watch it to stay awake when I'm falling asleep behind the wheel. And I don't even really watch it. I just put something on. Now, that being said, I have seen enough Jordan Peugeot and Jordan Peterson to know kind of their vantage point on things. Like enough to just kind of understand the way they think about things and how they might respond to something. Let's say it that way, but not enough to really know very much about them so maybe a few hours of content total, and not in like years. But so I've been very disconnected. I haven't read like hardly any other books. So I went through a season of my life where I listened to a lot of other content. But then like probably 3 years ago, that just like, and it wasn't even intentional, but there was just like this, really, I basically said, okay, I don't know anything. Although I was convinced that Jesus was who he said he was. And I was convinced he did what the Bible said that he did. Those are the only things I kept. And that was because I had seen a lot of things happen in his name. So I kept those things. And this is just the nutshell. But but I wasn't jumping to any conclusions about that. Why he did it, why anything. And I know that already what I said is still pretty vague, what I said that I kept. But and then I just did a whole lot of reading, and then I spent the last year or so doing a lot more writing and walking and pacing than I'm doing reading. I'm still reading, but not nearly as much of that. And then I was looking for more people to talk to because I didn't have anybody locally who could even think the same way I was trying to think about these things. So that's when I came back onto YouTube. I made one comment on one video, and Luke responded to me. And then me and Luke kind of Luke basically said he wanted to talk to me. And the comment was just like, hey, that I wanted to find some people to talk to. It wasn't like an actual comment. I don't think I've ever really made a comment on a YouTube video. I don't think ever. And then Luke reached out to me, and then Luke put me in y'all's chat, and now I know Jason, and now I'm here. So I'm very disconnected. If you use a lot of theological terms, if you refer to a lot of groups from the past, it's going to go pretty much over my head. Because I don't know a lot of history. I don't know a lot of. I mean, I know the Bible decently. I know that history, right? But I don't know a lot of history outside what's in the Bible, and I don't know a lot of words that aren't in the Bible in terms of. I mean, they might be there. whatever. Let me just say it this way. I don't know a lot of these terms that refer to these certain ways of thinking or these certain groups or these certain point periods in time. A lot of those words are going to go over my head.
I see.
So that's a little bit more. Maybe that'll give you a little bit more where I'm coming from. But most of the things that I'm going to say are I would think mostly organic and not like they're things that because the things that I've thought of in the last year, I've never really heard anybody say. So, and those are the things I think predominantly about. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully I'm not just regurgitating something I heard at one point in time.
Okay, so I am not going to pry into your life, but
You can if you want.
Feel free to dox yourself as much as you like. Like, where do you live? What's your educational background? What kind of work do you do?
Sure. So I'm 26, like I said. So, but I live close to Houston, and I work for a utility company that does natural gas and electrical distribution. But the actual field that I'm in is radio. So anything that has to do with radio frequency, that's my department. So there's some networking, there's some basic level IT because we do have an IT department. So I don't have to know how to speak switch and router, but I would. It's good for me to know basic stuff so I don't have to involve people when I don't need to, so I can solve my own problems. So I do know very basic, IT and networking stuff. But then radio frequency is really our bread and butter. But all the radio frequency stuff is over network, so there's a lot of networking involved. There's some physical. It's a very nice balance between still working with my hands and getting my mind involved and troubleshooting. And when I say nice balance, I have a desk, I have a computer. And even when I'm in the field, it's usually not, difficult labor, but sometimes it is labor where I can just get my mind off things, and that's very nice. But I also am in the office a lot. So honestly, it's a wonderful job. It's 4-10 schedule. They pay me a lot of money, way more money than I deserve for what I do. And like I said, I mean, my wife is the same age as me. We have a 3-year-old boy, a 1-year-old boy, which is basically 2, and she's pregnant, like 5 months pregnant with another boy. Their names.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Luca Miguel, Ezra Joseph, and then we're pretty sure the third one's going to be named Jeremiah. Pretty sure. And that's mostly because she said, she was adamant about not having a third boy or not having a third child. Sorry, not a third boy, just third child.
Right.
Like felt very firmly. And then one random day she blurted out to me, when we have our third boy, he will be named Jeremiah. And 2 days later she was pregnant. So, and she didn't even know that Jeremiah starts with when I formed you in your mother's womb. So it was just like, oh, well, I guess it's Jeremiah.
The one thing I will say is there's a Jewish tradition to at least see the face of your child before you decide on a name. So
Makes
I
sense.
highly recommend you. There's a belief that there's a minor form of prophecy parents get when they see their child's face.
In case your baby's ugly,
Yeah,
you want to keep the good names for pretty babies.
Yeah. Are any babies ugly?
Yes.
There are some ugly babies.
There's some. Actually, most of them are ugly.
Really? I always
Yeah,
thought
they're not
they
very.
were-
I mean, honestly, as soon as they hit 2 months, they start kind of all the edges kind of get knocked off. But up until then, they're a little rough.
I think I agree.
Okay, so what have you been thinking about? Like, what are things that are like important ideas you've been thinking about?
Well, I feel like I have to ask you a question first, knowing that you would say, well, okay, so yeah, but I'm trying to ask it in a way that I don't get like a super long response because I'm not looking for like a really detailed answer, just kind of a basic. Okay, well, let me ask it this way: do you think Jesus is the Son of God?
We were actually just talking about that. I believe all human beings are the Son of God.
Right, but I mean, no earthly father, right? He was born with the seed of, like, he didn't have an earthly father. He was born of the seed of God.
So
That's the question.
Yeah, that is not something that makes sense from a Jewish context. That's a Greek, like, oh, if you don't have an earthly father, you're born of God somehow differently than, like, idea of a virgin birth is just incomprehensible in a Jewish concept of what it means to be a human being.
Can I ask a question to that real quick? I think you've touched on this before. In Isaiah, that the verse is quoting, the virgin shall conceive, because that's referencing Isaiah's wife, right?
It doesn't say a virgin. There is a Hebrew word for virgin. It's not used.
And it's not there.
No.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the whole idea of a virgin birth is just, it's so outside.
Oh, I totally see how it's outside the way that the Jewish, let's say the way that you would think.
Yeah, it's a very Greek idea, right? And they had this type of thing all the time, but like it in no way like makes someone somehow better or superior or anything like that.
Yeah, and
like,
I wouldn't even say that even.
So
I wouldn't say the first thing that it makes him, if it makes him anything, and if it was true, if we were just speaking hypothetically, is better or superior.
So what is the point? Like, what is the point of that supposed miracle? Not that, how would you even know of it?
I thought I understood your question, and then you said, "How would you even know of it?" And then I was like, "I don't know if I understand the question. What do you mean?"
Let's say your wife gave birth as a virgin,
right?
Maybe you could, with some degree of faith, be like, "No, I know my wife. She, like, for some reason, you would know that."
Right. Yeah, she's not cheating on me.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could possibly, but like, as far as it actually being a miracle, I once looked it up. Something like 16 women every year claim to give birth as a virgin.
No,
Nobody
for sure.
believes them.
For sure.
You know, it's like, this is.
Yeah, it totally comes off as somebody like just trying to protect their image, right? They're trying to defend themselves.
It's in so many ways. Like, so why does God do miracles? God does miracles as signs, right? So like, if Jesus showed up without parents, okay, maybe that would be more like if he was delivered from the sky, but like she conceived and bore him after 9 months. Like, how is that a miracle? The entire virgin birth thing is one of the most nonsensical parts of Christianity.
I have another question. I might have asked you this before too, though. Is there any ideas within Judaism that Sarah was basically, or Isaac was kind of conceived in the same way that Christ is claimed to be conceived, or is it always believed that Abraham?
There's definitely this idea that Sarah and Rebecca didn't have wombs.
Oh, that's interesting.
They were not able to conceive children, and God miraculously made it possible for them to conceive.
Yeah, because the reason I asked, because I think the language I just kind of wondered about sometimes, because it says like Abraham's and Sarah are supposed to have children, but then it says God. I think right after that it said God visited Sarah, and then she conceived
Right.
and bore a
And-
child.
and
it doesn't
it
say anything about
says-
like Abraham went into her. Or sometimes sometimes the scriptures will say this: the husband went into her, but it just kind of skips over that and it says God visited her. And so I was like, that's interesting.
Well, the idea that, frankly, every birth is miraculous is definitely something we're 100% in on, right? The idea that, like, the fact that Andrew and his wife are able to create human beings, like,
It's pretty miraculous.
it's beyond miraculous. It is, we believe God is a partner in that, right? And that's why, like, having children is possibly the greatest possible thing that any human being does, right? So, like, this idea of having lots of children, it being miraculous that a child is born, right? That's not. How old is that one?
Very expired. 2022.
Like that. So the miracle of a child being born doesn't need, like, the whole idea that somehow Mary would be more pure or holy, like,
Yeah, and both of those things. So you pointed out, there's two things you pointed out,
yeah.
and I'm not going to be contentious at all. But
Yeah.
there's two things you
Be
pointed out.
contentious.
Well, I'll tell you what I think.
Okay.
And if that's contentious, then whatever, it's beyond
Yeah.
me. But that somehow that would make Jesus more special, or something like that, or be above other people, or something like that. And then the other one would be that Mary is somehow special, or like this blameless, or something or whatever.
Yeah.
From me, now obviously I know that those things I can't, I know where you get that from, and I think that's a pretty accurate assessment from the outside of Christianity, let's say. Neither of those things would I do I even think like when I think of why a virgin birth, why whatever, are either of those things like even something that crosses my mind.
So
like they're not things that I don't even think they're necessarily true. Like it doesn't make them like they're not. Yeah. And so then I think your other question, because you kind of asked two questions. You said, what would be the point?
Yeah.
And then you said, why is that a miracle? Or you asked some other thing. And so it felt like there was two questions. And so then I was trying to figure out how to answer your question.
Like, how is it a miracle? Like the entire thing is unintelligible to me. Like, what does a virgin birth achieve in terms of, like, being a miracle?
Right. Well, okay. I still kind of feel like I don't understand that question, but there is a question that I think I do understand. And if it is a question you legitimately have, I would like to just give what I think the answer is to. But it seems like the question is it again. So you said, what would be the point? Is that a way that you would phrase the question? Is that really what you're asking in essence?
Yeah.
Okay, then yes, then I'll answer that. So I just think that it would just be the only way you could see it. Okay, let's think about it this way. Let me try to conceptualize it this way. Imagine that like so imagine the same thing that you experience with the conscience and convictions. Mm-hmm. Imagine that on a cosmic scale. And the way that it manifests is more like a conviction that comes from heaven. And then let's say putting, and so it's a word that comes from heaven. And so the point would just be speaking. It would just have everything to do with speech, what's being said. And then you could look at the putting that word on the cross as the cosmic equivalent of silencing the voice of conscience. Mm-hmm. That would be the only way that I can conceptualize what it is it would be it would have to do with speech, a word coming, right? And that word is not saying anything different, saying the same thing in a bunch of different ways. Just one conviction being articulated in different ways, but it's just one conviction being spoken. And then we kill that conviction, right? And so that's just that. The point has to do with something that we could not know otherwise had it not been said. And that's something that you could certainly, disagree with, and that's perfectly fine. But as far as I can tell, that would be the point. It would only make sense within the framework that is the only way to bring something we couldn't know otherwise, or couldn't have otherwise. And that's the only framework that it makes sense within. Outside of that framework, I'm not sure that it makes any sense.
Okay, I hear you in terms of the word made flesh. But what I don't understand is why the word being made flesh without a father is somehow more word-like, or I don't know what, than the word being made flesh through union of husband and wife, right? So one of the first things the first Mishnah in the Talmud it talks about a wife speaking to her husband in the depth of the night, right? And this is something that in Judaism has been taken as a sort of analogy for the coming of the Messiah, right? A wife speaking to her husband in the middle of the night.
Okay.
It as a precursor for the dawn, right?
Okay.
Like a husband and wife face to face, arm in arm, and naturally, humanly together, right? Intimately, as man and wife, coming back together as Genesis 1 says, in the image of God made he them, made he it, male and female made he them, right? Is where we get this idea that like the image of God is masculine and feminine together, right? That is a basic belief in Judaism.
Certainly. Yeah.
And so why isn't the wife speaking to her husband in the middle of the night the way the word becomes flesh, as opposed to some sort of virginal birth?
Okay, so there's two things that I'm thinking about in the middle of this, which is one, man, I would really like to go to Genesis and talk about. Okay,
let's go to Genesis.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's say
Let me
this
pull
way.
up Genesis.
No, well, hold on. There's these two ideas that I didn't see that they merged, and then as I was just saying that, they merged. So, I think what you're saying would have been perfectly fine had Eve never eaten the tree. What you're saying would have been absolutely dead spot on, perfectly sufficient for everything you're saying. And I probably don't think of sin the way that, let's say, majority of the caricature of Christianity you probably have in your head does. So I'm asking that you give me a little grace in terms of trying not to jump to conclusions, which not saying that you would, but before I kind of say what I mean. So I guess I want to start by saying that, and then I would say that in Genesis, the reason why Adam has to be the son of God, right? That Adam, that Adam is born of God, right? He's brought into whatever. I don't care how you say it. The point is that is because God is invisible. And so it has to do with having the knowledge of him. In knowing him. Why, let's say God would put his seed inside Adam. And that may be something that you don't even ascribe to. I don't think it's something that's explicit.
It's actually explicit. It says Adam knew his wife and she gave birth.
Right, but I mean that
So
Adam
there is
had
a
the seed of
concept-
God.
Well, there is a concept of intimate knowledge, right?
Of course.
And
yeah.
And so, I mean, it says God breathed in the soul of life into his nostrils.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, I certainly believe that there is something very
birth-like,
internal to God. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that was engendered into us.
Okay. So the real thing, I think, that where it becomes clear is, even if it's not like super explicit, is when you see God's intention to be unified, right? And when you see the intention to be unified, then you understand the only way unification occurs is birth. And
It's
if
not
God
just
wants
birth, it's what leads up to birth as well.
yes, it's certainly
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
that is a unification, and why would that unification not be part of the giving birth to the Word in flesh?
Why would a man coming to know his wife intimately not be sufficient for Word becoming flesh? Is that a good paraphrase of what you said? Of what you're kind of looking at?
Well,
that unification is.
So why would it not be necessary? Why would it not contribute to the Word becoming flesh?
Yeah. And so really what you're just saying is, why would the Messiah not be born of those two things, since this is such a significant symbol?
Yes.
So that's in essence what you're saying. And I honestly, I think it's a fair perspective, but I don't think within the framework of that question, what I think is really going on can be conceived of. I don't think it's actually possible unless within the framework of that question. I think it's a. I understand where you're coming from.
The Christian view, as opposed to the Hebrew view, the biblical, the Jewish Bible's view of sex, is very different. The Christian view of sex is that you having sex with your wife is not like the greatest thing you can do in terms of prayer and godliness and holiness.
Right.
Whereas in Judaism, like,
that's what it is.
A man and what, like, it is the top.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Of there is no sex.
And so
in the Bible.
and that's where I still think
Bible is anti-sex.
I think I'm careful about I'm careful about lines of a line of reasoning that sounds this particular way. Not exactly what you're saying, but I'm about to phrase when I say this particular way. I'm going to give an example. A line of reasoning that goes, this would make a lot of sense, so why would it not happen this way? Those are not, like, I think this would make a lot of sense, so it makes sense that it did happen this way. It can't be like a deciding factor. It can be something that affirms or creates, let's say, valid skepticism. But I I can't take something that says, well, this would make a lot of sense, so and then use it as a deciding factor. I can say that again, exactly like I said. I think it can be sufficient for an affirmation. But it can't tell me that this is true. It can just kind of, confirm it a little, or it can create some valid skepticism. But I don't think that way of speculating about something can be like the deciding factor of something. I hear people do it certainly all the time.
I wouldn't say it's the deciding factor.
It's just a big one for you.
Going back to the original question of the virgin birth, right? In the logic of the Hebrew Bible, someone who is born of a virgin as opposed to a union of man and wife is in fact less of a person, is less holy, less of the image of God. And the fact that Jesus wasn't married, he wasn't a father, right? You're a better candidate for the Messiah than Jesus ever was.
Bieber for Messiah.
Like, I would believe that you're the Messiah 100 times before this supposed Jesus of yours.
Right.
Because you have 2.5 kids. He had 0.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, there's nothing. I totally get it. Like, I get where you're coming from. I totally get where you're coming from. I just, I don't know. I'm thinking to myself, like, how far are we really going to go on this? Because I don't know. I could tell you, maybe more of what I think about it. Maybe you'll hear something you've never heard before, in terms of a perspective, because I don't know what you've heard. I don't know what people say for the most part. I know somewhat of what they say, but
it doesn't matter what people
not really
say.
in
It's
regards
fine.
to Genesis.
I repeat myself all the time. Feel free to tell me things I've heard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'd see.
Sometimes
earlier, I want to
Jacob asks you
continue
questions.
my thought. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just gonna say sometimes Jacob asks you questions and you just kind of gotta think them for a while. You don't always have to answer on the spot. 'Cause- they're good questions though. They're very good questions.
Because I was kind of what I guess I would do is, because I'm not interested in like trying to persuade you. Like, there's nothing in me that really like wants to try. Like, I want to lay some stuff out there maybe for free, again, for your consideration. And I do think, because of what I believe, I think what I believe is important. So it's not like I don't want something good for somebody. Like, if I had something that I felt was good for somebody, of course I want it for them. But I'm also at the same time not interested in forcing anybody into anything. So
Andrew,
in that sense,
don't worry about it. Like,
no, I'm not definitely not worried about it. It's just I'm trying to, I guess you're hearing my internal debate of like, how far do I want to take this? But I want to finish my thought, because I was saying something about Genesis, just about the fact that like 2 becoming 1 is really kind of what birth is. And of course, I agree with you that the act of even making the child is unity itself. But the product, right, is 2, literally, just mathematically, very simply, 2 becoming 1. It's not very hidden. And so I do think that the fundamental issue, I think if you look at Genesis, right, there's an issue that exists, which is a byproduct of there being 2 categories, let's say creator and created. And that the byproduct of those being 2 categories, which I think before you try to make heaven and hell represent any other categories or sorry, not heaven and hell, heaven and earth, right? The heavens and the earth. Before you try to make those represent anything, it's like the two most fundamental categories, even more fundamental, let's say, than heaven and earth, is creator and created. It doesn't get more fundamental than that. And the byproduct of being created is, I mean, we could go into why, but I'm going to skip the why unless it's necessary, and just say that it's ignorance.
Mhm.
And so darkness from the beginning is a representation of ignorance.
Mhm.
And God's solution to that ignorance
Mhm.
is birth,
Mhm.
and putting his seed inside of man and then breaking man into two so that he can adequately fulfill the purpose. And I think what is happening in the external, in the reproduction of Adam's family to cover the earth,
Mhm.
is a outward representation, and nonetheless disconnected. It's not disconnected.
Mhm.
Because even the angels, I think, God wants all of creation to know who he is,
Mhm.
and he's invisible. So he
Mhm.
wants himself to be seen.
Mhm.
And so I think even the angels are looking on in the beginning and getting the revelation of who God is from the reproduction of Adam's family. But at the same time, I think that that's what I'm saying. It's not disconnected, but I hope we don't, if you disagree with that, don't get too caught up in it, because the point that I'm trying to make is that is an outward representation of, let's say, the knowledge of God reproducing in the heart until it covers the heart like the waters cover the sea. And that is what's happening within Adam, and then being expressed through Adam and expressed through, let's say, a multitude of infinite other expressions of that same pattern breaking into a million other expressions. And that everything is revealing who he is. Everything is. So yes, of course, Adam, they have to reproduce, and I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't make it sound like it's just a representation, right? It's just like a symbol, because I don't think it's disconnected. Like their reproduction and covering the earth, literally, I don't think it's disconnected. So I'm trying to make it clear, but that is what is going on. Is God being concerned with exactly what Micah, is it Micah? I think I have it wrong. I might have it wrong. I mean, obviously you will know, but that passage, right? That the knowledge of God will cover the earth like the waters cover the sea.
Oh, yeah, it's in
I would
several places. Yeah.
But I just think, and again, we're not trying to get too broke down in technicalities. I just want to simply say that I think that was God's intention from the beginning. And the fundamental obstacle to that intention was ignorance. And that the way he was going to overcome that ignorance was through putting his seed inside of humanity, and then that reproducing.
Right. I agree with everything you say.
Yeah, and so that's great, right? And so having agreed with that, the only thing that's different, right? The only thing, and again, I think what you presented as at least part of your reasoning for objecting, right, is valid. I get it. I hear where you're coming from. But I still think the only thing that there's not, like, I really don't think there's a multitude of reasons why it would be a virgin birth. I don't think it's a deep thing. People talk all the time about layers and things having layers of meaning. I don't think this is one of them. Like, I don't think the virgin birth is this thing that would have to have, a whole lot of meaning to it. Sorry, my wife just sent me a text that kind of derailed me. But that it would just have to do with that not being able to occur like it was supposed to occur. So it would just have to do with this seed of God, which was supposed to be reproduced, being corrupted and then being reintroduced. And that would be that's just it. I mean, there's nothing, I mean, we could talk more about that, because I don't think of sin and salvation. I don't even use those words the way that any of my Christians do, my Christian friends do. But it's not going to boil down to anything else but that. And I honestly, I don't want to have like a bunch of peripheral debates, because I think it's literally that. That's the only thing that makes virgin a relevant word in this whole plan, is that it just is that. That's probably the best way to put it, is that seed, you know, because there's a it's both God and man, let's say, participating together to make this come about. Right? Man has a responsibility that he has to carry out in the beginning. So he is co-laboring with God. And so there is two seeds. God's seed is not physical. God is not a physical entity. Okay? But from the very beginning, Adam did have a physical seed. So the seed which Adam is to pass on has to be a unity of God's seed and his seed. And to the point of the Old Testament tabernacle and the inability to dwell within that presence, there, if you just assess the unity of both God's seed and Adam's seed, then I don't think it's a stretch to say that there's an issue when that seed is corrupted. Okay, and I think everything that occurs in Genesis makes flawless sense in terms of being an external representation of that seed being corrupted. The being, you know, the cherubim guarding the entrance to the garden and being essentially removed from access to the tree of life. All of that makes flawless sense within essentially being an external representation of the seed being corrupted in this process in what Adam was supposed to co-labor with in order to bring about that being, I guess I will say, you know, interrupted in some way, shape, or form. Something happened. It wasn't supposed to happen. And that or whatever.
Jason,
I don't want to. Yeah.
Keep on
No,
going.
you're fine. Yeah. So I mean, I'm basically done, but I'm just saying that what it boils down to, the whole virgin thing, is it's just that seed is corrupted and the seed has to be reintroduced, and there's nothing deeper to it. There's no that's the way I conceive of it. Me, you know. And so I think that's why before Jesus is anything else, he's that seed. Okay.
Okay, I hear you, and just to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, so what you seem to be saying, if I have you correctly, is God introduced himself, his spiritual self, into the world through Adam, that was corrupted through the sin of the tree.
I wouldn't say that God was corrupted. I'm just simply saying that there's a unity, that God does not have a physical seed. God is not a thing, right? Okay, so in my conception of the world, right? There is a bit of godliness in you and a bit of godliness in your wife. And through the unification of you and your wife in holy matrimony, there is a purity and an introduction of godliness into the world, which
creates human beings, right?
Yeah. Still think I
Which is-
totally think it's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
So, and you seem to be saying that was somehow corrupted with the sin of the tree in a
No.
way that requires a virgin birth.
Okay. So okay. No, two things. Two things that it means. That this corruption, let's say the byproducts of that corruption, is one, that it can no longer be unified with God's seed. Let's say it that way. Let's say it that way.
Why? Where'd you get that?
Well, I'm not getting it really explicitly from a lot of the things I'm saying aren't explicit. Virtually nothing that I've said is explicit. It's there pretty obviously, but it's not there. They're explicit. I'm not saying what I just said is obvious, but
the rest of what you said, I mean, I could pull sources and it makes a lot of sense, and I could give you many. I agree with pretty much 99% of what you said. I don't see how that arrives at anything that makes a virgin birth.
Sure. That's fine. That's fine.
Somehow sensible.
I will say I said there's two things. I want to say the other one first because I want to say it before we get deep into something else and that's fine. We can totally get deep, but I just want to say it so that it's out there as well. That the other thing. Okay, so let's say God says the ground is cursed because of you. Let's just speak hypothetically, just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier. That the ground is cursed because of you.
Mm-hmm.
That it will no longer bear its fruit, but will bear thorns and thistles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say that is a representation, and he actually very clearly says that, hey, he's become like us, knowing good and evil. If he eats from the tree of the life of life, he will live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the tree of life was to produce eternal life for the body.
Mm-hmm.
This corruption, and actually, again, I was saying two things, but now I'm seeing what I think might be a bridge. But that when God talks about the ground is cursed because of you, it's a reference to his flesh. So I don't really, the way people talk about sin nature usually, and what they mean by sin nature usually, I don't really like the way they usually talk this way. Because I just think that it's simply the flesh, like that because you don't think that we're just bodies.
No.
And so what the body represents, if anything, is impulse, drive, urge, desire, right? It's not a force of articulation. It's just a force. It's just something that pulls and drives and whatever. And so if he eats something into his actual body, if he were to bring something into his actual body, which would have caused his body to be eternal, I don't know why it's not safe to conclude that bringing something else into his body wouldn't also have results on that body. Now you could say, well, the opposite is just death. And it's okay, sure. But life has never been just about life. It's always God's picture of life is not just living forever. It's also a flourishing. Just in a very, very simple language. So I'm saying that the opposite of flourishing is famine and drought, right?
Okay.
So I'm saying that what he takes into his body corrupts the body. And the body has these impulses and urges and drives and desires that are corrupted by taking in this tree. And that is passed along, right?
But the opposite happened.
Yeah, go ahead.
when he took of the tree, you just mentioned it, right? It says that when he became more like God by eating of the tree, of the knowledge of good and evil. He became more
It says he has
godly.
become. He has become. Sure. Well, he has become like us. It doesn't even just say more. It says literally like us. If you want to take it to that extent,
Yeah.
right? Literally like us.
Right. So how is that? But you were talking about corruption. This is purification.
So yeah, this is where the conversation would need to be had, and we would need to first take the whole virgin thing off the table, and then like we can leave it on the table, like we can come back to it, but I kind of don't want to have it in the peripherals if this is where, because basically what I'm hearing is this was a great thing. This was wonderful. Like it's like
okay. I mean,
they
the
became
sin
more like
was
God.
The sin. The sin was the sin, right? But the question becomes, what was the sin and what was the result of the sin, right? And so you haven't listened to my channel before, so I'm gonna hit you with some of Jacob's greatest hits.
Greatest hits.
I
told him there might be greatest hits if he came on.
So the
I'm listening.
so there's evil and there's good, right? And
Yes.
God creates evil and God creates good, but God is all good. So why does God create evil? God creates evil for the good. Evil exists so that good may exist, right? Like it says in I believe it's Ecclesiastes, I saw that greater is wisdom from folly as light is from darkness, right? As the greatness of light is from darkness.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to totally derail you, but I want to say that I would offer I don't want to even say objection at this point. You haven't gone very far, but just to say that I do think that it's true that God can create evil. Perfectly fine. Doesn't bother me one bit. He can give people over. The Bible does say it. And so not a problem. But I actually think that things can go. God will use anything for good, but that I guess this boils down to, because even if it doesn't go, I was about to say, I guess this boils down to sovereignty and where you stand on that sort of stuff, and how you conceive of free will and stuff. Because I was just going to say that I don't know what the right words is, because I don't know if I want to say didn't intend, or that the initial evil, God creates evil isn't necessarily a reference to God creates everything, and that God does create evil, and He gives people over and causes these things to happen, exactly for the reasons that you're expressing, so that He can show this, and so that He can bring contrast. But the intention from the beginning was always to reveal. But the initial way in which He was going to reveal, right, was not by using evil, but rather by using dust. And it's the same concept conceptually. It's just you apply that concept to something else that He can use, and then it manifests as using evil. But the initial way He was going to do it is by reaching as low as He can possibly reach. To unify Himself with that,
right?
And then I think moving forward, He uses everything to do what He's trying to do. But and that includes evil, and that includes creating evil. But the initial evil, let's say angelic and human fall, is not I guess I feel comfortable saying created that those events. Yeah, so you have to be so careful because I do.
Let
I'm
me
trying
put
to-
it this way.
I think you get what I'm saying, though.
Yeah. I don't believe God preordained that Adam and Eve must sin. I
Sure.
believe that it was their choice, which God gave them the choice.
Cool. We're good. We're
And-
good. You can keep on your train
Yeah.
then.
So, good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So what I wanted to. Okay, now I'm wondering because that's actually what I was trying to kind of say. Now that doesn't mean I'm saying good and evil are the same. They're not. Good and bad maybe is a better way of putting it. But the fact is that I don't believe the world was somehow corrupted in a way that was I mean, that means that somehow it would necessitate a new creation of sorts, right? Like,
Well, let's just talk about the way in which it was corrupted before we talk about whether or not it would necessitate something. Because
Okay.
if we can't agree on the way it was corrupted, then that subject is peripheral.
so let me give you an explanation of the sin, which I'm guessing you have not heard before, but it's one of my favorites. So this is Genesis 2. I'm pulling up, right? And it says, "And the Lord commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat," right? "But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For on the day that thou eatest of it, thou shalt surely die." Notice
Right.
it says eat. It doesn't say touch. And
Right.
there's a reason why I bring that up. And then God creates creates Eve, right? And then it says, "Now the serpent was craftier than all the beasts of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the tree of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die." Now, God didn't actually say, "Don't touch it," right? And the rabbinic one midrash says that actually what happened was Adam thought, well, if we shouldn't eat of it, then I should tell her not to even touch it, right? And then without telling Eve that this was his own innovation,
added by him,
and then the snake pushed Eve into the tree, and she touched it and saw that nothing happened. So then she thought,
okay, and that is not something that's said, right? That's just there. This is just at this point trying to put things together.
This is a midrash. This is.
I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing you just mean that it's something that's kind of speculation to some degree.
A midrash is
Educated
a
speculation.
Jewish tradition which
I see.
helps us understand certain things. It's not necessary. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily take it literally because many midrashim say different things, but it is one way of understanding this text.
That's
right?
fine. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. So the sin, right, which is a very important sin, was actually Adam's in failing to communicate with his wife. Right? In failing to speak the truth to her, and that was the first sin. It was the beginning of the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and bad.
Okay, so let me just my first initial sort of thought about that is that it makes that, what did you call it?
Midrash.
Yeah. Makes the most compelling factor of Eve's decision the revelation that touching it did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that although that's a very interesting thing, and I actually don't have a problem if it doesn't explicitly say it, because I actually, when I even asked that question, was to see where you are on this, because sometimes I speak to people who are like, they won't entertain anything that isn't explicitly said.
I mean,
we were kind of talking about that earlier too.
Unless they're actually reading the Hebrew themselves, that's impossible. Because the people who are interpreting from Hebrew to English.
Am I here?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can hear you.
Andrew sounds like he's not hearing us.
God.
Okay.
You know, that's interesting though, because you brought up first breakdown of communication, like Hezi said too. But that's interesting because when he comes back, he's been talking to me about speech.
Hey,
so
can you hear us, Andrew?
Yeah, keep going, Jason.
Oh no, well I was just thinking this whole topic is kind of interesting to me too now with the first breakdown of communication, because my first thought was just, how difficult that is to avoid just in, I guess if you're approaching this thinking the Hebrew language God gave to Adam and Eve both, but if you actually think about the development of any language, that's extremely hard to communicate. But then I'm wondering what that even might imply, because you've been talking to me, Andrew, about speech and how, and I don't know, and how things, like when you were on the phone with me earlier, you're bringing up speech. So the breakdown of communication and the breakdown of speech.
Oh, I see.
Just what
that
implies.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it would be a good topic, but I also think it would be a distracting one from this particular where we're at, at least where we're at right now. Maybe not totally, but we're, but I do think that'd actually be a good conversation. No, I think it'd be a good fun conversation. I had a friend call me and it just straight up booted me. I was going to say that it makes the most compelling factor to be the fact that she touched it and nothing happened, when the Bible actually seems, and what's written in the account actually seems to be intentional as to reference what was the compelling factor. Not to leave that a mystery.
What do you mean?
So she looked to the tree and she saw that it was appealing to the eyes and had the appearance to make one wise.
Right.
And so I'm just saying that it seemed in the account to be intentional to point to what was the compelling factor. Now, that doesn't mean, just for the record, doesn't mean that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. That she wasn't pushed into the tree, and that also didn't contribute. But it's not silent in its intent, in trying to say at least part of what contributed to her decision. And so I do want to speak just to, without discrediting what you said, without even discrediting that at all, to what I think the sin is, and to what it says was at least part of her reasoning, right? And what led up to the event itself. And so I would say actually that it's idolatry at its most fundamental form. And I'll say that it's idolatry at its most fundamental form because we believe that an invisible God created the visible world through his words.
Mm-hmm.
And thereby the invisible realities are supreme to visible realities. And as I mentioned earlier, that body as a representation and the way that we experience it is one which is primarily characterized by drives and urges and pulls, and not articulation. And the thing in which we possess that makes us,
So explain to me. You've mentioned that word articulation, and I think you're using it as to mean something specific. If you could explain what you mean by that.
No, I literally just mean words. The body doesn't really, urges, and I think that I have two categories of like there's speech. There's something that's presenting itself to me in a very direct way. Speech.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling me things, talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other things that present themselves to me in the same way, because speech is always pushing one way or another. It's never really, I don't know if anything's truly like neutral. Right. That would just be to say that things that you do don't matter because they have no impact on reality or impact on anything. That's just not the case. But
you can speak louder through your actions than through your words.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And it's the same way. Why? That's the reason why. Oh, well, God wants to. Maybe the objection is, well, God wants us to know what He's like. Why doesn't He just bellow down from heaven?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, yeah, that's not going to work. Speak louder than actions than you can through words. So I agree with you. Now, secondly, but just to go back to the thing that when I say articulation, I literally just mean that there's speech and then there's urges. Okay, and they can coincide. So that they don't coincide. It's just that there's just two basic categories. I have a body, and that body doesn't really itself, like an animal, doesn't talk. But it does have a force to. I don't know, man. I'm just saying that body to me has more of a association with not speech, but rather just drive and pull and urge, things like that, right? But that's not really like articulated. It's just a force that pushes in a certain direction. And so, but that's not super important to what I'm saying right now. I just think that what I'm saying right now, the most important thing is that God created everything. An invisible God created the visible world with his words. That's the most important thing to what I'm saying. Because I think, and I said that the eating of the tree is idolatry in its most fundamental form, because it is the belief that you can take in wisdom with your body. Right? So one of the ways is to say is they're doing the right thing at the wrong level. Right? They're doing the right thing, but at the wrong level. The tree itself is good. Like, there's no problem with the tree. I just think that you can't take in God's wisdom with your body. Like, you can't consume it and think that you're going to get it. God wants to give them his wisdom, but it's to make the physical thing the source of who God is. It inverts the reality that God created the visible with his word. The idea that the tree could provide wisdom is an inversion. And that inversion is the essence of idolatry. And it's why it manifests as mute idol statues.
See,
that's why that's the manifestation.
So Chezi says wrong level or wrong time. I have to agree with him, because I disagree with you fundamentally in what you're viewing as the the nature of that sin. You're thinking, oh, the physical, right? So the belief in Jewish belief is that God made the tree of the knowledge of good and evil for them to eat and commanded them not to eat it for a while. And if they had waited and eaten of it last, as opposed to before the other, right?
Yes.
Then they would have, in fact, been able to eat of it, and it would have given them a knowledge of good and evil.
So I actually, in a lot of regards, agree with that. And for the record of what I said, and I know it's like, well, how do you agree with that with what you just said? Because you're saying the error isn't. What I said is one way of saying it, but really what I mean is it's the way in which you think you can know God. It's an error in the way in which you think you can know God.
By
And
grasping as opposed to receiving.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
And I do think actually the tree is actually a very good picture of what they are to become.
Mm-hmm.
The tree of knowledge of good and evil is a really good picture of what they are to become in their mature state, not in their infancy.
Right.
And so I do think that, yes, everything, and I still say this now, everything is yours. The only thing is you're not entitled to any of it. Yep. And so the only precondition to receiving that all that God has for you is patience.
Correct.
But so that is my standpoint in terms of, I think what you said actually is it makes a lot of sense that you can say that they were going to be able to have it. They just couldn't have it yet. Now, again, I think that the way I would have said is they were to become it, right? But that they can't become it by grasping for it. And I think that the way in which you grasp for it, there's more going on than meets the eye, but what you see is a really good representation of what's going on. And I am saying that to present something physical as a source of wisdom is a mistake. As the source.
Again.
Not that it can't have wisdom in it,
right?
But to be living, to present like in the capacity to be a living wisdom.
Right. Okay.
Alive.
So allow me to take this back to the discussion on Christianity as a whole. I think that this is part of what makes me think. What, Jason?
I'm interested in how you're going to do this. Go on.
Because when it comes down to it, I think the primal sin of Christianity is, in fact, not being willing to wait, is in grasping for the Messiah, right? That is the difference, right? Is a Christian
very interesting, yes,
that Jesus is the Messiah, as opposed to being willing to wait for the coming of the Messiah.
Now, I would agree, but then I would say that the fundamental sin is grasping for glory, honor, and immortality, I would agree that's the fundamental sin, is still not being willing to wait. But instead of the Messiah, I would place in your words. I would say everything that you said, but I would substitute when you said Christ for glory, honor, and immortality. And it's not waiting for that.
I would agree with those as well.
That's interesting because that's exactly that's like Solomon, right?
Oh, so
that's why I always bring up Solomon when it brings up the garden story. I'm like, it's repeating itself with Solomon, and
so
he has the opportunity.
Fundamentally, what Hasidic philosophy, Jewish mysticism teaches is that what we have to be is the woman who it was Elisha, right, who came to her and said, find me all the jugs and I will fill them with oil.
Mm-hmm.
Right? we have to create vessels for receiving that which God wishes to give us. That is our duty, is to create a space for God to fill with his presence, right? And in a very real sense, the temple is in fact that, right? It says, Asuli mikdash, make for me a place of holiness, v'shachanti betocham, and I will dwell within them, right?
Yeah.
So the temple, and that's the beauty of the Holy of Holies, right? You create a whole temple, and you have the holy, and then you have the Holy of Holies behind a curtain, and there you have the ark, and upon the ark you have what Christians call the mercy seat, right? The cherubs, and there where everyone else would place an idol, there's nothing. There's emptiness, right?
Yeah.
And having and having that, capacity to empty out and allow for holiness, right? To take yourself out of it, right? One of my favorite lines from Jesus to quote: "Don't be like the leaders of the Gentiles, who, when they lead, they lord it over others. But it shall not be so among you. But the one who would lead shall be the servant of all." Right? And that is the fundamental teaching of Judaism, is Ani Avda de Kudshabrichu. I am a slave to God. I have to empty myself and my grasping and my desires for that which God, and to accept the yoke of heavenly rule over me, right? God says to Pharaoh, right? They shall not be. They shall leave your service to be my servants, right? And that's your choice. You can be a servant of Pharaoh, or you can be a servant of God. But there's no freedom as such. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, until it felt like you were in the middle of a sentence at the end there. There's no freedom. So you can be a servant of Pharaoh or a servant of God, but there's no freedom
as such. There's no freedom in which I, right, am the ruler, right? There's a Mishnah in Avot, which really, I mean, when you think about it, it doesn't make sense when you first listen to it, but when you really think about it, right? It says nullify your will before God's will, so that he will nullify the will of others before yours.
Yeah,
right?
Dude. I mean, and exactly like I said. I mean, I think it's precisely correct. I think you're getting to the essence of it in a very precise way. I think you're pointing directly to the essence of what all of this is about, and not just sub purpose or some sub. I don't know. So you get what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
that, and then if you equate, let's say, grasping for glory, honor, and immortality prematurely to wanting to what Christians have done with the Messiah, then that's fine. But for now, I'm just going to say that everything you said is exactly in alignment with. Which, by the way, let's find a stopping point for me. But I can be patient with that stopping point. I just want it to be a good stopping point, and then maybe we can pick up. I want to pick up, but then it's grasping for glory, honor, and immortality prematurely. That is a really, really good way, because it's all there. Exactly like I said, it's all there for them. And actually, I mean, the tree was probably radiating. You know, this tree had the appearance of those things. And I mean, you have to also think that Adam and Eve are put in a position where they have to think. I mean, God said they would die. Okay. Now they have to ask themselves, it's like the opposite has to be true. Well, if I'm going to consider it, I'm going to think that if I never eat this tree, maybe I never truly live. Right. And God's lying to me and he's keeping something from me. And that's the most fundamental aspect of that temptation is he's keeping something from me, something good for me. And at least that's the thing that undermines faith in God at a very fundamental level. By asking you to wait, that he's keeping something good from you. That really undermines basic faith. But and so, yeah, I mean, I do think that honestly, as I listen to you, I don't feel it necessary to dissect what the sin is any longer. But rather to if it becomes a relevant question again in this next subject that I was about to say, then we can obviously keep talking about it. But really, I think the more relevant issue is what are answering the question of the consequences of that sin. And then I think, but I do think the consequences need to make sense of what the sin was. So it doesn't make what the sin was irrelevant. They're just trying to think that I do think that how I define the consequences of that sin is going to have to be, and not just because of logic, right? Going to have to be the only thing that makes virgin relevant. And it's like, if you just rip out the vast majority of the Bible, if you just rip out, let's say, forgive me for this, but if you just have the story of Genesis and that Jesus is born of a virgin, it's like, and really, if you take the whole Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, it's it sounds like just whatever. Okay, I'm careful with the way I'm using Bible, but if you take let's just say, forget the word Bible. If you just take the Old Testament and then what most people have as the New Testament, and then you only have two people who were born without an earthly father. And if you want to look deeper into that, then it's like, it's going to have to, you're not going to find another place to make sense of why there would be another.
Andrew, Adam also didn't have an earthly mother.
Yes, totally fair.
Why does Jesus have an earthly mother?
Right. Well, but Adam was dust.
Okay.
But I'm not saying I'm agreeing with you, but I'm also I'm saying that it doesn't. I'm not going to. I think it's a valid question and one that we can attempt to answer, but I'm not going to. I don't want to treat it as if it completely automatically undermines the whole thing. I think it's something that could potentially have an answer. I don't know if you're in the same grounds, but either way, it does sound like you're a patient man and you're actually entertaining the conversation. And so that I appreciate, because otherwise what's really the point?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So it's not debate club, Andrew. Honestly, I have these conversations. Frankly, I would love for a Christian to actually convince me that Jesus was the Messiah. I would love it.
Okay, sure.
And and ever since I was a kid, I used to talk to Christians because I wanted somebody to actually convince me that Jesus was the Messiah.
Yeah. Okay. So well, no, good. I mean, and that all that does for me is give me confidence. I'm trying to be careful because definitely don't want to say wasting my time, because I would never say wasting my time. That's not what I would mean at all. Far from what I would mean, but I mean something similar to that, just that I want, I don't want to have, you know what I'm trying to say. I don't,
Yeah,
I'm glad you're actually listening, otherwise what's the point? So, but I think maybe that is
You
a
want
good
to
place to
actually have
pick
a
up.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I'm, there are things that I feel solid about, just like you feel solid about, but I'm going to weigh, the thing I can promise to do is weigh everything you say for what's valid and what's not, and then to say why I think it's not valid or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, so I would think that my only point in saying what I said, because the why did Jesus have an earthly mother is another question. My simple answer is that it's the equivalent of dust. That it was there just in a different way. It's not an entirely different thing. But the that's total sidebar. The main point was that that if I just took those two, what a lot of people have as the Bible, and I saw this major thing, I'm like, oh, hey, well, that's an interesting thing. There's only two people in this book who don't have an earthly father. And then I asked my question, why? Then the only place I can go is why there would have to be another thing. And the place that would manifest itself is in the consequences of the initial fall. So I do think that is really the best. I don't want to say best. I want to say only. I really want to say only place the conversation can legitimately be had, because at least as it pertains to why virgin, right? Other than that, it's like, if the conversation gets outside of that, I honestly am tempted to say we won't be talking about that anymore, because it's not.
One point I do want to bring up. How do you read Isaiah 7 in its actual, because the way Christians explain Isaiah 7, there's actually two virgin births. One during the time of Ahaz, and a second one with Mary and Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, I don't know.
Did you say that's not even virgin, that word there?
That's
right?
not, yeah. So if you get
the
rid
what
of
Christians
that,
do.
so if it's not virgin, then yeah. But if you're saying that Isaiah 7 actually talks about a virgin birth, then you have three people in the Bible, in your Bible, who don't have an earthly father.
That is true.
So yeah, so first of all, I don't know, because
it's fine not to know, and I appreciate someone who's willing to say I don't know, as opposed to just giving an answer. Yeah.
I don't even have a clue.
Yeah,
because I don't even know what Isaiah 7 says off the top of my head. Now, the other thing that should be added, and if this makes you have less respect for my opinion, then so be it, but it's the truth, is that I'm way more familiar with the New Testament than I am with the Old Testament. Although I know a bit, I know, like, I have a really good association with a lot of the things, and I have read mostly through it. I know way more of the New Testament than I do the Old Testament.
Don't worry.
There are lots of passages that I have looked deep in. And honestly, my biggest question, and this may seem ridiculous, because even in the New Testament, for those people in that first generation, the thing that was the compelling factor was the way in which Christ was a fulfillment of the prophecies. And when I assess modern Christianity, the thing that we seem to be most ignorant of, in my broad sort of assessment, is the way in which Christ fulfills the prophecies. I don't think that people really even could, if I asked the vast majority of Christians to explain how Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecies of a coming Messiah, they could do it at all.
Andrew, have you heard of my $5,000 challenge?
No.
Okay, so I am perfectly honest about this. I will give
What do you
anyone
want?
$5,000 if they can point to a single prophecy of the Messiah in the entirety of the Hebrew Bible, which Jesus uniquely fulfilled.
He is uniquely.
He's definitely uniquely. I could tell he doesn't use that, there's some lawyerism in there.
Well, first of all, I'm not the first person to issue this challenge. Many people have issued this challenge, and it's never been paid out. And people on my channel have tried to come with prophecies, and Father Stephen DeYoung jumped in on one of the Bible studies, the videos on my channel, and was like, "Stop! You're not going to do it. It's not a thing."
So there's two things I feel. Go ahead, Jason. Did you want to say something, dude? You've been sitting there a long time quietly, very
Oh
patient.
no, well I might hop off in a little bit anyway, but the only thing I was gonna say is like some of the reason I appreciate that challenge and appreciate these questions too is because where I don't think like I've said before, I don't necessarily think the idea of a virgin birth is irrelevant, but I don't think it's a necessity for it makes me pause and question, and I think it's good to do that of why you would actually think Jesus is the Son of God, because that feels less compelling to me. And like even I've told Jacob before, like I had a conversation with my parents at the beginning, I think it was like a year ago, and kind of having the same discussion, and I asked them, I was like, well, why is Jesus the Son of God? And their answers and a lot of Christians' answers are usually maybe I should wait, I don't know, something like the virgin birth or something like works or miracles or something like that. And I'm like, he's back.
I don't know what happened, man. I'm listening though.
No,
You
that's
said
fine.
you were talking about why is Jesus the Son of God, and then you said you had a conversation with your parents or somebody.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, and most Christians, I think that's one of the reasons Jacob brings it up too, is because a lot of Christians would say it's because of the virgin birth, it's because of this, or it's because of this miracle or that miracle, and then I don't think that's even the implication of I don't think that gets at the heart of what it means to be.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And I think it's getting distracted with all of it because
I think so too.
Then you can follow any charlatan or like so I have no problem with the virgin birth happening. I have no problem with 1,000 virgin births happening. I have no problem with any of that because I don't have a problem with Red Sea parting. Like I think
you just mean it's not the most pivotal point.
Yeah,
it's not the most affirming point.
Yeah. But I think like I think you were kind of saying too, or at least in my experience coming across Christianity, that seems to be a lot of their main argument would be something like, well, hey, there's the virgin birth or the fulfillment of this prophecy or that prophecy or this. And I'm like, I think that's missing the point of the whole message of the whole will of God in all of this. But that could, that's just my opinion, man.
Well,
and that's why I don't
Jason,
even know if I'm Christian anymore.
You said that you do need to go soon, and like I said, I think we're actually at a really good stopping point. But I had two things I wanted to say, there's after admitting my ignorance of much of the Old Testament and of the fact that I wouldn't try to take your challenge, because I can't point to to try to affirm the Old Testament, the way in which Christ is a fulfillment of these, the way in which Jesus is the Christ, essentially, right? That he fulfills the prophecies and is the Messiah. but the question I'm only interested in answering right now, the only question I'm interested in answering for the sake of this conversation is why does a virgin birth make any sense? That is the only question I really care to answer. And I don't really care to try to talk about it outside of the consequences of sin, because I do think it's going to break down, because that's the only place that will make any sense. So I think that's where we should pick up next time. But then the only other thing I want to say is we talked about what the sin is, and as far as I'm concerned, there may have been like some like kind of really technical things that we said, and you thought it was a really fundamental disagreement, but there was so much of what you described that I agree with. I actually think we still pretty much agree on the essence of what the sin is. So I don't really have a problem there. I think we should just move on. And then of course that's the next logical place to take it, which is what is the consequence. But the other thing that I want to add to all of this is, what in the world does it mean that like, how can I say that I cannot walk somebody through an explanation as to how Jesus is the Christ, is the Messiah, and fulfills all the prophecies, and consider myself a Christian? How in the world could I even have faith apart from that? And, I think at the surface, that seems like a very legitimate question, but I actually don't have it. It doesn't cause me to waver at all. And the reason being is because my faith is not first in an explanation. It's first in power. It's first in the way God moves in power before it's in an explanation. And I think that the way in which Christ is the fulfillment of the prophecies is not irrelevant to Gentiles, right? And I just want you to listen. Your name is Jacob, right? I just want you to listen hypothetically for a moment, right? Because I know that that's a whole nother conversation of like, Gentiles being brought into this thing and whatever else. But if it was something that God was going to do, then the thing that I don't find that showing how Jesus was a fulfillment of the prophecies is irrelevant to the Gentiles. If God wanted to bring them into this thing in the first place, I don't think that it's irrelevant, but I also don't think that it's nearly as relevant to them as it is for Jews. That those are his people, that is his family that he selected, and that he was telling to this specific people group in advance what was going to happen. And so this is a very, very fundamental thing for Jews. And I don't want to downplay the weightiness of what I even think God would have wanted. And if he prophesied in advance, it's not like he wanted those prophecies to be a primary source of validation. So I'm going to affirm that and in no way try to water that down. But again, I'm answering the question as to how in my right mind I can simultaneously say that I can't do that and nonetheless have an unwavering faith in Jesus Christ. And my answer to how I feel like I can do that and be in my right mind is that my faith is first in power and not in an explanation. And what I'll elaborate just briefly on is that Paul, when he brought this message, there's a passage where he says, when I came to you, I did not come in compelling speech or in persuasive words, but I came in the demonstration of spirit and of power, so that your faith would not be on the wisdom of men, but on the power of God. And I think even for the Jewish people, the demonstrations of God's power was supposed to be a fundamental affirmation for them that he is who he says he is. And so I think that because of that, and because of what I believe about God wanting to bring the Gentiles in, because of those two things, I do think that faith is first in power before it is in an explanation. And therefore, that is what my faith is in. And I feel like I have faith in that even while I don't have, because I feel like that is enough, right? I think that for the Jews, that was enough. The demonstrations of God power was enough. It should have been enough. It obviously wasn't, and lots of them still fell dead in the wilderness. But it should have been enough. And so that is where I stand personally, because I do think it could be a legitimate thing to be said to me, which is like, how do you, in your right mind, if this is such a fundamental thing and is supposed to be the primary source of validation, the confirming and the fulfillment of prophecy, think you can even have faith? And so that's my answer, right? Is that I don't think it's an unimportant issue. I think it's one that I should become more acquainted with. But my concerns, and you asked me a question I never answered because I wanted to ask you a question first, because you asked, what do I think about? And I felt like I couldn't answer that question without, because what I think about pertains to all of these things, and it's built on the backs of all of these things. So it would be an impossible conversation to have if we're not coming from the same place. I mean, not totally. I can still give you my mind, but it's like, it just kind of seems silly when we disagree on things that's built on. So, I think, I don't know if I had anything more to say, but that's really what it boils down to, I think, for me.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're getting ready to jump off, and Jason's getting ready to jump off. Would you like to say our ending prayer?
Sure. Is it in Hebrew?
No, it's go ahead. We simply ask you to say a prayer for us as we conclude our Bible study. Be as Baptist and Protestant as you like.
So what am I praying?
Well, usually people pray that something.
No. I just meant, sorry. This is just to close. This is just like a closing prayer.
Yeah, we have an opening prayer and then we have a closing prayer.
No, that's fine. Okay. And then just pray whatever I want to pray.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, God, I thank you. I thank you for the privilege of life itself. I thank you for the privilege of being able to have these conversations. And God, I thank you for these two men that I have become more acquainted with tonight, and for their humility and openness. And God, I just ask that you would bless all of us with coming to know more of you through our openness and intent to know you and see you more and more. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's fine. We allow all kinds of idolatry on my channel.
Yeah, man.
This
hey,
private chat here is pretty foul. Does this happen?
Yeah, I banned.
That's pretty,
you get
mean.
that when you're Jewish. You'll get used to it, Jason.
Yeah, when more Jewish I become. Right. Some evil anti-Semitism there. Yeah. Well, that's sad. I didn't know it happened quite that often.
Fraud had a question we didn't get to. Exodus 33:1.
What is that?
I kind of derailed that.
Boy, don't look it up. Try to guess. What is it? 33:1. Is that before he goes in the cleft of the rock?
Exodus.
I don't know what it would be. Oh, you're looking. You're cheating. I can see it on the
He's
bottom.
cheating.
You just haven't added to.
He's cheating.
I can't think. I don't know what it is either. I have no idea. I can't.
Some
remember
Hebrew.
off the top of my head.
And the
Like,
Lord
go-
said to Moshe, "Depart and go up from here, thou and the people whom thou hast brought up out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, to thy seed will I give it."
And then it goes into the angel part. Maybe he meant more of that. I have no idea.
I have no clue what Fraud was asking.
Yeah, I don't either.
Is he talking about the verse? There's a quote in the New Testament that says, Abraham says, seed, and then he says he does not say seeds as to speak to many, but as to speak to one.
Yeah, that's because he didn't know
People,
Hebrew.
you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that might be what they're referencing.
No, he's saying it says you brought up. I mean,
I just thought that might be why the person posted it, the comment.
Well, Fraud says the people you brought up from the land I promised. Yeah, I mean,
I see.
I think.
No, he's focused on something else.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a.
Hezzy, the link's there. I gotta go though, Hezzy. So sorry, man. But I hope he pops on. I'll listen later if he does. If you're sticking around.
Thank
Still
you.
handling spices.
Yes, there he is.
There's Chazi,
There's-
straight from Jerusalem.
Hezzy's a good guy to know as well. Good morning,
Hezzy, are you
Hezzy.
there?
I gotta go. I'm sorry. It's nighttime for me.
Goodbye,
And
Jason.
I'm tired. Good night. I'll talk to you soon. Love you.
Much
Bye,
love.
everybody. Bye, Jacob. Bye, Andrew. Love you all.
Good night.
Bye. See you, man. Good talking to you. Well.
Andrew, I appreciated your openness and honesty and levels of engagement. I think it's very healthy for things to see that in places like these. So, kudos on you.
Hey, how long have you been listening? There's a lot that's been said. Thank
How
you.
long have I
First
been
of all.
listening?
Yeah.
You know, just wake up fairly early, getting the house in order, getting my kids off to school. So I listen to some Bible. Sometimes it's more Jewishly oriented. Other times it's a little more New Testament oriented. Today was yeah. I mean, you know, these conversations are good. Jews and Christians both have to dig into their past to better recognize themselves and recognize the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Well, hey, I appreciate your compliment. I do take that sincerely.
Chazi, people are asking what kind of shirt you're wearing today. You can't just jump on with your cam off. Chazi is a designer, and he wears the most interesting clothing for an Orthodox Jew. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm off camera right now, just still running around the house, getting stuff
That's
ready
his way of
before,
saying he's only wearing an undershirt. If
he can't expose that he's not wearing something super fashionable.
Exactly, I can't. What will people think of me? You know what I mean? I have a. I don't do it for me. I do it for the people, for the guests. You know, for the people out there.
That's right.
Jacob, did you read this weekly portion?
What's this weekly portion? I'm sure I've read it before.
We started the book of Exodus this week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big deal. Moses, I am that I am. I'm becoming that I'm becoming. All those goodies. Pharaoh, the Israelites, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
All the stuff, all of it.
All the stuff. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Well, sorry, I had a friend that called me and I told him, hey man, you know, if we get to a stopping point and you know you're still open for a call, I'll call you back. And
Do your thing, Andrew.
but hey, I wanted to say a farewell to Jacob and thank him for sure. And I don't know, he told me that you guys have this weekly or something.
Yeah.
Correct.
So Bible study on Saturday nights are. I mean, we might end up changing it again, but we used to have it on Wednesday nights, and that was pretty popular and good. But I couldn't do it because of my classes last semester, and so we changed it to Saturday nights. I mean, I have streams on my channel regularly, and you're welcome anytime. And frankly, if you ever want to come on and like discuss things, this was a very interesting discussion, so we can just have a discussion, the two of us. But yeah, right now the Bible studies are set for
Cool. Well, yeah, it does
Saturday
sound
night.
like we'd probably be better geared for, if I can join a Bible study, that may be cool too. But it does sound like we're smack dab in the middle of something.
Of
We're
a
literally just
interesting
breaking
discussion. Yeah.
that conversation up. So it does seem like I don't want to interrupt the normal Bible study routine and going through a
The
passage.
normal Bible
So
study routine.
This is how it
people
goes,
jump
right? It
on
ends up like this. Yeah.
And we talk about stuff. Yeah.
No, that's fine. But now that we have an open-ended conversation, we should probably reserve it for maybe just a chat. I don't care who else is on it, but something maybe for that, right? To address that specific, to start with that question in mind, right?
I'm just saying this. I'm saying this with love, Andrew. There's no way that conversation is ending in one stream. So assume,
no, probably not.
Assume it's gonna.
But we should
Assume like
open-
next year you'll have this conversation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, you're probably right, but it should probably have a different outside of the Bible study, because you probably come with the passage of some sorts. So,
Not really.
regardless of how, whatever you want to do, man, it's your channel. But yeah, I mean, and it would be nice to get to talk more with old. How do you say your name, man? Skezi?
Cousin Ezekiel.
But yeah, no, but I appreciate you letting me join and talk, and I really did. I very much enjoyed it.
Cool.
And however you want to continue is fine with me.
You're always welcome back. I don't know if you use Discord or at all, but I have a Discord channel. I mean, a Discord server. You might want to join that. If you haven't listened to my discussions with Father Stephen, you might want to listen to some of those, because those touch on a lot of this stuff, and you might find that interesting. But yeah, Father Stephen DeYoung is really, really interesting. And the fact that he's come onto my channel a few times has been a great honor of mine, and the reason my channel's has any subscribers. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna dip out. Nice to meet you guys.
Goodbye,
Nice
Andrew. Onwards and
meeting you.
upwards.
Bye, Andrew. Trey,
Hello.
who let you
Hey,
on my
Trey.
channel?
I don't know. Some guy.
Some guy.
Me and Jack, we just had a great night. Oh, gosh.
You were with Jack?
Yeah. It's
What'd you guys do?
we played pool, we went to a bar and everything like that.
And you didn't invite me. Thanks a lot. Okay, fine.
Hey, he set it up.
Okay, whatever. Fine. No reason to invite me.
I hear his heart breaking from here.
You had the Hebrew Bible study. It was too important. What do you want?
Yeah. I probably wouldn't have come, but yeah.
Jacob, who was this Andrew guy? How did he just jumped on?
So apparently Andrew was watching, like he commented on on a stream with Luke about how he doesn't have people to talk to about this stuff, and Luke started talking to him. And then he started talking with Jason, and then Jason invited him to jump on, and he did.
Sick.
I got to.
He's 26 and he has 2.5 kids. Trey.
2.5.
Bro,
Oh,
like,
his wife's
what?
pregnant. Okay.
How does that work? How does that work?
One of his kids is very short.
He has a 3-year-old,
year-old,
a 1-year-old,
And one in the oven.
One in the oven.
One in the
yes.
oven, yes.
And
And
you're
you're
echoing.
echoing, Fuzzy.
He's religious, right? He's a Christian, Catholic.
He's pretty Baptist, if you ask me. But like, he has idiosyncratic beliefs.
Oh no, that never goes well. Oh,
It never goes well. I mean, the guy is successful. Like, he has a good job. He has a wife who loves him. He has kids.
2.5.
Seems like the guy's winning at life to me.
Dang, bro, 2.5 kids at 26. Dang. Yeah, I don't even know anybody who would do that. Dang.
You could catch up.
Yeah, I do need some advice from Hezzy. You know, the mixed dancing man. You know.
Well, yeah, if you go mixed dancing, you might end up with 2.5 kids.
Yeah.
He seems to love God, and
All of
God
them, not
seems to
mine.
love him.
Hey, Fraudwith. I love Fraudwith. I love him. Hope he's doing good.
Fraudwith is an
speaking of
okay
that-
guy for a former JW.
Yeah. So I got pressed on Israel Palestine on a date.
Yeah, that's the type of person you should not be dating.
Actually, it went so well. It went so well after that. I pulled it off. That was the low point of the date. Everything after that went up. Like, you have no idea. It was so sick.
Okay, are you getting married?
No, probably not.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
well,
sorry to tell you.
let me know. Let me know once you get married.
I do feel as though most of these girls, if I say the wrong answer on Israel Palestine, the date ends. So that's
Any girl that's a major point at all in any way is like wrong. Like, this is
that's
not a person you want to be married to.
Every girl my age that is not ugly. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about that, Jacob.
I highly recommend you and Tayo take a trip to Nigeria.
I guess that isn't an option, or maybe I just start talking to all the Jewish girls. But I have a feeling all the Jewish girls are supporting.
Yeah. I don't know any black Jewish girls.
Really, I had to say that on stream. On stream. Wow. Where would you get that from, Jacob? Where would you? I mean, I'm fine with white Jewish girls.
Sure
Chinese
you are,
girls.
Trey. Sure you are, Trey.
Sure I am.
I don't believe this is the first time that's been said on the stream.
Oh, maybe, possibly.
Hey, people have their preferences, and that's fine.
I did go out with an Indian girl today. That was the girl who asked me about Israel Palestine. So
Look, I'm telling you, find yourself a girl who doesn't ask you about Israel and Palestine.
yeah, that's not going to work. Like, that's not. I'll just be since we let. There's no non-line girl in Los Angeles that does not think if I don't support Palestine, I'm a bad person.
Okay, you need to find better girls to deal with. Honestly, you really do. You really, really do. I think we lost him. A successful date is a successful date, Fraud says. Okay, I think I'm going to end the stream and go to bed. Especially since Trey is gone. Good night, people.